bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game.
Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, good evening. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man, how you doing? It's Monday. Monday, September 11th. 254 days into the new year, just 111 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planets. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? It's Monday, September 11th. Yes. We'll be talking about that tonight. Strange day, strange weekend. Man, watching Irma play out live 24 hours a day on television for 3 or 4 days there was pretty traumatic. And, but last night, late last night, Irma breaks up and I don't know, it was like past midnight or something, like 3 o'clock in the morning, way up north, like, I don't know, Daytona Beach or something. And one of the newscasters, one of the local journalist reporters, was still grabbing onto a wall in 50-mile-an-hour winds. It was kind of funny. It was kind of funny. I don't want to make light of it. But after what everybody else had gone through, and you're seeing that, it's just like, man, you're going to have to watch that video clip for the rest of your life. I think you played it up just a little bit there. But dodged a bullet, I would say. Lots of destruction, but amazing that many people evacuated. To see all those reporters broadcasting live and to broadcast live. Okay, looks like... we're good, but we've got some server not found issues. I think too many people are on the website. If you're experiencing that, well, if you're experiencing it, then you can't hear me right now. So there you go. So what I was going to say, I don't need to say. Okay. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so to watch that drama play out, it was really, really funny. You're going to have to watch that clip for the rest of your life. You are going to get teased. Tonight, very special guest, Dane Wigington, is here. Now, we're going to be talking about everything that Dane is a specialist in. He has been rolling this rock uphill for so long. For us, for the world, for our community. It is all about the science and the research, and somebody has to get it done. And Dane fights the good fight every single day. Do sign up for his newsletter. We'll be getting all of that out during the show tonight. But one of the most important men in our community. So he will be here with us. We are going to be talking about weather modification and chemtrails. And, of course, a little 9/11. We have to do that, too, as well, because, what is it? Today is 9/11. And tomorrow night, Laura Eisenhower is going to be here. And I wanted to bring Laura back because I wanted her to help center us throughout all of this chaos that we're going through right now. I mean, ever since the eclipse, man, it's been earthquakes and wildfires and hurricanes and flooding all around the world, combined with all the other madness of the news that we've been dealing with. North Korea, for example. So after this pretty traumatic weekend and end week for all of us, I wanted to bring Laura back. I need some Laura. So tomorrow night, Laura's going to be here, and she will give us all the advice that we need to get us back on track, get our feet back on the ground, and to stop tripping, because it's tough to do. It's easy to give in. So she will be with us tomorrow night. Wednesday night, Scott Wolter is going to be here, and he's back, and we're going to talk about his latest Templar research. And he's one of my favorite guests on the show, and again, one of the bright shining lights in our community. He is out there researching lost history, and certainly Templar history as it relates to the world and back here in the United States. But he's got some exciting new documents and some new research, and it's just going to surprise you and maybe even shock you. So that'll be Wednesday night. Thursday night is another Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom Live. The call-in numbers are 323-825-5045 or 323-275-9695. And we'll see how the conversation goes with Dane tonight. He's got so much information, but I will see if we can get to some phone calls later on in the show. And I will announce when we open up the phone lines. Do follow us on Twitter at JChurch Radio, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is Fade to Black, JChurch Radio, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, whatever. Go now, follow, like, and subscribe over on the website. If you want to join in on the conversation tonight, we have 2 chat rooms that are always live. Over at KGRA or Spreaker. And, of course, there is Twitter. Twitter is live to my left, or actually here, it's live to my right. Over on Coast to Coast, it's live to my left. Here, it's live to my right. And just use hashtag F2B, and you can join in on the conversation there in real time. Space Ghost, that is one of the most disturbing. What is that? That is a crazy GIF. I'm going to retweet that, actually. That's pretty cool. Disturbing, but cool. And when it's disturbing, but cool, it will get a retweet. Did you see the flamingos? Did you guys see the flamingos getting led to safety in Irma? Here I'm looking at rabbits. What is that? Okay, all right. Twitter's out of control. Frankie Four Fingers has officially entered the room. And he has got rabbits to the sea, lemmings to the sea. All right. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. You can email throughout the show. Just make it good. If the email is good, it gets past the producers and in here to me. But they read it all first. So if it's not any good, if it's not worthy, I never see it. So use your best brains that you've got. If you feel so inclined to take out the time to send me an email, just make sure it's genius. It's the best email you've ever sent. And if you do, it will make its way in here to me. And then if it really passes the test, then I'll even read it live on the air. How's that? That's a deal? All right, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Now, with that, before we move forward, I've got Ronnie McMullen here from Life Change Tea. And we're going to talk to him in just a second. I just wanted to say really quick, don't forget all of our sponsors, Life Change Tea, which is getthetea.com, River Moon Coffee, New Pharma, Ancient Life Oil, Sacred Skulls, and Studio Dome Speakers. This is a family that we have here with our sponsors. We just don't take the money. We don't. All of the products, all of the sponsors that we have on this show are products that I use, that I endorse. That my family, our team here, everybody is using the product, okay? And Ronnie McMullen is one of those. Happy birthday to today. Moby today is 52. And also today, out in Australia, our good friend Dan James today is 29. And he said he had a 30-year-old car, so obviously he didn't buy that new. So Dan James, happy birthday, my friend, and all of our friends that we love so much in Australia, the great down under. Okay, OTD, on this day in history, of course, the attack on America. It all started at 8:45 a.m. on Tuesday morning, September 11th, 2001. We'll be talking about that tonight. Fader fact, since 1948, 100 planes have gone missing during flight and have never been found since 1948. Trip on that, right? Okay, tonight, very special guest, Dane Wigington is here. We're going to be talking about weather modification, chemtrails. Today is the anniversary of 9/11, so we're going to do that. Tomorrow night, Laura Eisenhower. Wednesday night, Scott Wolter. Thursday night is another Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom. But right now, let's bring on, like we do at the first of every month, our good friend Ronnie McMullen from Life Change Tea. Ronnie, good evening.
What do you say, Jimmy?
It's all you, Ronnie. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. A dramatic weekend, Ronnie, with the 24-hour live epic drama playing out on TV, which was Irma. And I'm not making light of it. It's just that's what, the networks decided to do was to have that play out 24 hours a day. So we had that going right into today, which is 9/11. How you doing, and how do you look at today? Is it a special day for you? Do you try to keep it in memory?
That's a loaded question. Try to keep it in memory? No. To me, it's a day that is a tragic day with a lot of loss of life. So, one tends to not want to go back and revisit that scene. And it's something to me that could have been preventable. It's an attack on our own soil. And in my opinion, it could be conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, but it's an attack on our own soil by our own people, the global elite. So for me, it's a tough day. And then, of course, we have the storms hitting pretty hard with Irma. We had Harvey, then we had Irma, and we have Jose behind that. And again, I think it's perfect you have your guest on talking about chemtrails and manufactured weather, because is it possible that those storms are manufactured, not necessarily from the start, but at least enhanced? So that would be a question.
Yeah, or steered too as well. They may form naturally, right? But maybe they are steered. And
they could be steered because think of this. We have no health care bill. We have no tax reform. We have nothing done in Washington. And of course, Mr. Paul Ryan, Mr. Wackohead, said he'd have it all done probably by September. We have nothing done, and we are in September. But how do you get anything done if you're getting wailed on by manufactured weather?
Well, you know what? And if you want to keep people from talking, right?
Make them run from the water.
Yeah, cover up the news, right? And mask it. I'll tell you what, though. You know who I feel bad for? Because of Irma, and I'm serious too. You know who I really feel bad for? Kim Jong-un.
He just got knocked right out of the news, didn't he?
He got knocked out of the news. He could have done anything this weekend, and it wouldn't have made the front page.
No, he could have blown up South Korea. No big deal.
He could. And as funny as that sounds, it's true. That goes for any terrorist, ISIS, or anybody that's out, being a bad guy out there that enjoys, watching the media freak out and getting news coverage. Well, you didn't do anything this weekend. And if you did, we didn't know about it. And that's the other trippy thing. Even 9/11 was pushed off the front pages because of Irma. And it almost overlapped fully to today. And 9/11 would have been an afterthought. How strange is that to think about?
Yeah, it's pretty strange. It's like, okay, we deleted those people. Let's go to the next set of people we're going to delete. How many people are dying in these storms?
Right.
And that's not counting if Jose comes and does a big splash.
Yeah, well, it looked like Jose was turning north, and I tried to get some data on that today. Maybe I'll reach into the break, or Rita or Renee can send me some updates really quick.
But if they can turn the storm, they can turn it right back.
Yeah, I know, right? It was weird, too. Very erratic chasing that down. Now, I have brought up, because I want to talk about CBDs here, and this is very, very, very important. But I'm kind of tripping a little bit on the a drug-free trip. on what December 7th meant to our grandparents, right? And that's not that many years ago. But December 7th was exactly what September 11th is to us. Our generation will never forget that day. And growing up, 2 generations removed from it, we would hear about December 7th and know about Pearl Harbor, but the impact wasn't there for us, right? We understand what September 11th is all about. And now it kind of allows me to appreciate December 7th a little bit more than I did in the past, because think about how traumatic that was for them back in 1942 when that went down. So here we are today, or is it 41? December 7th?
It was 41.
1941.
December 7th, 1941.
Yeah.
But, what's interesting, Jimmy, is that was, a war issue. And I guess we could call 911 a war issue, but just imagine this, and this will be hypothetical. Can you imagine if you were, going in and checking out everything that happened on December 7th, 1941, and you found out that all the zeros that came in were flown by our own people?
I know, right? Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Okay, so the point being is I think 41, and look, it's, since December 7th, 1941, we've remembered it, and yes, it's dropping off a little bit because of the age thing and what have you, but I think 911 is dropping off way quicker, and that was an attack from the inside. Yeah,
it's strange to think about, and there's another part of it for me, because the fact that it went down in 1941, we were out of that war and had victory in a world war by May 1945, May 8th, 1945. Nagasaki and Hiroshima happened after that, but the victory against the Nazis in Europe was May 8th, 1945. And, so 4 years, right? 4 years, maybe even a little less, World War II started and ended for us. And here we are still in Afghanistan, still in Iraq, and that was, that's 2001. So that's 16 years there. But if you back up off of that and you go to the original Desert Storm, you add another 10 years to that.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. Okay. Let's see. Really quick update. Okay. Let's go to CBDs. You and I talked over the weekend, and CBDs, I have been getting email upon email about CBDs from friends, from Fadernauts, phone calls. It is the main topic of the conversation wherever I go. Everybody is talking about CBDs. Now, tell us about Ancient Life Oil and what products that you are offering, and why is it right now that it is the talk of the town? It's the talk of the nation.
It really is. The thing that I would say is when you're getting your CBD, you want to make sure you just don't get hemp oil. And hemp oil is something that you can buy in, say, Whole Foods or Sprouts or one of these, places. And that's not the same thing. You can put that on your salad, and it's not the same thing as CBD. And a lot of people are taking that, putting it in little 1 ounce bottles and selling it off, and it's not going to do anything for you. But, I guess it's big placebo. It's good for you. It's not a bad thing for you. It's just not going to do its thing.
What's the difference? What's the difference?
Well, the CBD oil is extracted different. It's a whole different process. And the CBD oil is something that I can't say what it does because I'm so limited. But let's put it this way. The people that are buying CBD from Ancient Life Oil, okay, and we're pretty new, they're already reordering. So this is something that tells you why would they reorder if it's no good and it doesn't do things. So let me do it this way. I'll tell you something I can tell you. Let's put it this way. Governor Abbott, okay, he signed and focused on a medical cannabis oil for epilepsy treatment. That was in June of 2015. So Governor Greg Abbott, he signed a bill into law that would allow Texans with one type of epilepsy who haven't found relief from any other drugs to use non-psychoactive, which is what we carry, non-psychoactive cannabis to treat their symptoms. And it takes usually, roughly, somebody's having maybe 4 seizures a day, takes them down to like 1. So here would be a question I'd have for those people that, we all have a lot of doubting Thomases out there. If it works on epilepsy with seizures, which is huge, it's a huge disease, what does it do for many other things? And that's what people are going to want to ask. Does it help me with X? Does it help me with Y? There's such an array of diseases that it will help with, but I can't go into it. I know what it does, but I can't go into it. So what I would say to you is if you have something going on in your body, you'll want to start maybe mellow on the 200. And then if that's not doing enough, then you move to the 500, and the 1,000 is the extra strength, which is really great. And this is something it will relax you, but I want to put the big warning bells out. This is non-psychoactive, okay, which means there is no THC. It's like 0.00023, something like that. So you could actually drink the whole bottle of 1,000 milligram bottle, go take a drug test, and pass.
You can pass a drug test. Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you this then. Hypothetically, why would somebody else that is investigating CBD? Why would they be looking into CBD, but not necessarily buying from you? But what have you heard? Why are people seeking out CBDs?
I think this is kind of one of my famous fun things, and nobody uses this, but go get a sand dollar off the beach. And when you get a sand dollar off the beach and flip it over, what you're going to find is a picture of the marijuana plant. So somebody up there is telling us something. If you look at what CBD does, okay, and go, I can't even tell you on my website because they'll come cracking down on me. So if you go look it up and just see what CBD does for the body, and you can find it on the internet, you can find what it does. It is mind-blowing, over the top. Wow, can't believe I'm looking at this. And so if you have a disease, there are good chances it's going to help you immensely.
Cancer?
But you need to look it up, and I can't tell you.
Well, okay, but I can't ask. What about cancer? What about diabetes? What about hypertension? What about high blood pressure? What about inflammation? What about arthritis?
What about eye problems?
Oh, yeah. What about eye problems?
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. Inflammation is a killer. Okay. Inflammation hits in our gut. And so when our gut gets inflammation, we start getting disease. So let's do it this way. CBD would help you with inflammation. And inflammation is not just the gut only. It could be in your back. It could be everywhere. It could be in your brain.
Your eyes.
This is why you have diseases in the brain.
Sure.
This is why you have eye diseases.
That's right.
So if you have something that takes inflammation and helps it, say it that way, got to be careful. Mm-hmm. How much better would you feel? In other words, if you sprain your ankle and you're going, oh my God, this hurts. Let's just say, and I'm not saying this is fact, you could take something and all of a sudden you felt way better. Would you want to continue that?
Right.
And what if all of a sudden your healing in your leg all of a sudden, say, tripled? Would you want to do something about that?
Right.
And this is the kicker, is you have to say, and here's the thing that's really cool. Let's go a different route so we can talk about it. So the pharmaceutical companies, okay, they are working on a synthetic CBD. Why? Because you can't patent just CBD. So if you make a synthetic version, you can patent it, and then you can find a way later to try to get rid of the real stuff so that the only thing that people will have would be the synthetic CBD.
And now, one of the things that some people say is that CBD is expensive, but it's actually not. If you, one bottle would last you for how long?
Depends how much you take it. So you could go 2 weks to a month.
2 weeks to a month. So it's it's actually very economical. It's it's $1.
Ask anybody with a major disease,
right,
what they would pay to feel better.
Right.
And they wouldn't pay $35 or $100. They would pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to feel better.
Right.
So is it economical? Yes, I think so, because you're not going to pay hundreds to thousands of dollars. So, and there's a lot of things like when you take a pharmaceutical, It's like when you cut yourself, you put a Band-Aid on, and you keep the Band-Aid on for the rest of your life.
Well, one of the things, I'll do a testimonial right here. I've been taking CBD now for about 3 months, and virtually stopped taking pain meds. And I'm talking Advil, Aleve, things like that, where I was popping those, a handful twice a day. Every day of the year. Haven't done it in 3 months. I mean, it's crazy. And it's an answer to a lot of things, but it's like my entire body is straightened out. And I take a lot of other supplements, and I drink the tea, and I'm doing a foundation from New Pharma, which is an interesting product too. So, granted, I'm a walking testimonial of a naturopath, right? But I'm not taking the over-the-counter chemicals anymore. I'm just not doing it.
If you look at what you take, when you're hurt or your muscles are aching, you take ibuprofen. Well, go to the internet, look up what happens if you took ibuprofen all the time. Boxers will tell you because they drop dead.
Right. Well, thank you. Well, I've been taking it every day for 20 years. So let's not hope about. Now
you won't.
Now, what's the best way for everybody to get to you for CBD?
AncientLifeOil.com. And here's the thing: is a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, I can't order with my credit card," and unfortunately, you can't. We are working on that. We should be ready by next month. We did have that all set up, but unfortunately, the powers that be. I'll leave it at that, but the powers that be were not right, we'll put it that way, because there's so much turmoil around this because they and them don't really want CBD people selling CBD. So basically what we did is we said, look, if you write a check to us and send it to us, we'll give you $5 off per unit. So those people that say, oh, it's too expensive, you're getting $5 off. So if you bought 3 bottles, you get $15 off. You bought 5 bottles, you get $25 off. Just write down what you want, put the number on there, send it, and we will send you some CBD. It's wonderful. There's even a salve in there, which is really good. So like if you have some knee pain or shoulder pain, you can just kind of rub it on and see what happens. And we have so many people that have said, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So and our CBD is pure. It's non-GMO. It's organic. It's the best of the best, and it's with coconut oil, so it absorbs. And we got some really neat stuff that we're adding to this that no one else has. So that's coming too. So you're going to want to stay and keep watching the website, AncientLifeOil.com.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Be safe out there and go, hang out on the rest of this 9/11 Monday. Just a strange day all the way around. Thank you so much, and for all that you do.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Ronnie McMullen. Ancient Life Oil. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Also, getthetea.com. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Okay, coming up next, Dane Wigington is here. His website, of course, is geoengineeringwatch.org. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back with Mr. Dane Wigington. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black Blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. Let's wind the clocks back 60 years. Food was different. Food provided health and nutrition, and using supplements was minimal. Unfortunately, now we have chemicals, GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides that can be quite lethal in the name of our food supply and, of course, the ever-loving dollar. Supplementing our diets can be very important to stay healthy. Cleansing from daily intruders to the body might be critical. Live strong and take charge. Log on to getthetea.com. Our herbal tea is a great way to cleanse from intruders. Our supplements is a great way to maintain and improve your health. When your health is not up to par, go to getthetea.com. No GMOs, no fillers, and organic. And very helpful in keeping you at the top of your game. Life is too short to feel, you know what I mean. Stay in the game, at the top of your game with getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Again, getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at kgraradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. kgraradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Tomorrow night, Laura Eisenhower is going to be here. Wednesday night, Scott Walter is going to be back. Thursday night is another Fader night. Open lines with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom Live. Tonight, Dane Wigington is here. Now, Dane has a background in solar energy. He is a former employee of Bechtel Power Corporation and also was a licensed contractor in California and Arizona. He also owns a property up next to Lake Shasta, and it is a large wildlife preserve. I want to talk about that tonight. He focused his efforts on energy on the geoengineering issue when he began to lose very significant amounts of solar uptake due to ever-increasing solar obscuration caused by the aircraft spraying, as he also noted significant decline in forest health and began testing and research into the geoengineering issue about a decade ago. He is the lead researcher over at Geoengineering Watch, and that website is over at Jimmy Church Radio. All you have to do is click on it, and it'll take you straight there. And he has investigated all levels of geoengineering, solar radiation management, and global ionosphere heaters like HAARP. Dane has appeared on an extensive number of interviews and films to explain the environmental dangers we face on a global level from the ongoing climate engineering assault. Tonight, we are going to discuss all of the recent global weather and disasters, from the current wildfires out here in the west. We have hurricanes out in the east, earthquakes down in Mexico. We are going to discuss what is causing them, and is there anything that we can do about it? All that and much, much more, because today is also the anniversary of 9/11. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Mr. Dane Wigington. Dane, good evening.
Thanks, Jimmy. Good to be back. And this is certainly a surreal time in human history when we're about to hit the wall at full velocity. I mean, all of human civilization, industrialized society, and the vast majority are still completely asleep at the wheel. We need to change that.
It was a pretty dramatic, ever since the eclipse, it seems like everything went haywire. Before we jump to conclusions, what do you think is going on?
Well, it's been happening for a very, very long time. We've been trying to sound the alarm at Geoengineering Watch for about a decade. I've been at it, besides that, for about 20 years now. And the bottom line is people are simply not paying attention. We've been well immersed in the sixth great mass extinction on planet Earth, statistical fact, not denied by any credible source. And yet we have a population that's carrying on as if this is going to be able to continue much longer. And this is truly a paradox that we could get this far into the curve without any significant percentage of the population understanding the severity and the immediacy of our situation. And I don't care, when I disseminate this information, Jimmy, I don't care who believes me, who doesn't believe me. It's not a matter of what I say. It's not a matter of belief. It's a matter of what is. And people have to get past their preconceptions, their biases, the fact that they've seen too many sci-fi movies that tend to program everyone into believing that somehow technology will fix everything. That's not reality. The misuse of technology, more particularly, has brought us to a very dark corner. And the immediacy, again, of our situation, if we remain in the current track, is staggeringly short statistically. We can go into that when you wish.
Yeah, and we will do just that. One of the things that I have been trying to get everybody to understand is that the trees, I can see that. I live in Los Angeles, I live in Burbank, where it's mainly concrete here. But the trees that are here, they just seem to be dying. We have the honeybee issue. Now it's monarchs, and they aren't able to feed because of pesticides and a shortage of their natural food supplies are now. And we may see an extinction of the monarch butterfly here on the West Coast. And there used to be tens of millions of them, and now it's down to hundreds of thousands, soon to be nothing. All of this is connected, and if you need a warning sign, I've been trying to provide that, so have you, but all of this is connected, isn't it?
It's completely connected. And in regard to the extinction term, the human race, if we remain on this course, will have no habitat to sustain itself in very few years. And we're not talking about centuries or decades. Right now, statistically, if the current mathematical trend continues, we won't be around longer than a decade in the Northern Hemisphere, and likely much shorter than that. And this is where people don't understand, because they've been trained not to understand a non-linear equation. You can't look backward at a graph and think that has any relevance moving forward, because It doesn't. You can't leap off a 100-story building and think you're flying until you hit the sidewalk. You might believe you're flying. We're passing the second story right now, Jimmy. So back to let's take, for example, the insects in Northern California in the last 10 years, 90% decline, 90 aquatic and terrestrial insects as measured by Forest Service biologists. You'd think that would make a headline somewhere, wouldn't you? And we're losing 200 to 300 species of plant, animal, and insect a day. We're losing our habitat. And the only reason Americans don't know this, Jimmy, is because the stores are stocked up in our country, because we're taking resources from other countries that are starving to death. About $20 billion a year in food right now, Jimmy, is being imported from countries that are starving to death to keep the U.S. shelves stocked, to keep the American population pacified until the last possible moment. And
then we throw out half of that food.
For the moment, but I would argue we're perilously close to a complete overturning of our paradigm, and I realize how many people will walk away, shake their head, and not investigate at all. And I've never asked anybody to in any way accept anything I'm saying. I'm asking them to investigate statistical facts that are not being denied. And for 10 years, on the fact that we're in the sixth great mass extinction, I have at geoengineeringwatch.org beat that drum relentlessly. And now, because it can't be hidden any longer, now we have mainstream media admitting that. And we're not just entering the sixth great mass extinction. We've lost 40% of Earth's 60% of Earth's wildlife populations in the last 40 years. How long does anyone think that can continue? Global bluefin tuna populations down 97%. Pelagic fish populations down 90%. Jimmy, if your listeners want to see how bad it is, they can get a taste if they search global animal die-off, I think is the name of the site. It's a spiritual site, but they post headlines from around the globe every day of massive die-off. It's staggering to look at it. 50,000 tons of fish here, whole crops there. It's mind-numbing. And again, we have beaches all over the globe right now covered with dead marine life, and the same is true with terrestrial life. Our troubles are not coming, Jimmy. They're here. They're kicking the door in right now, and the vast majority are still asleep.
We over at the house, we have solar power, just like yourself. And I've noticed the same trend here in that it's almost a fixture now. It's not like really doing anything. But we thought we did the right thing by having solar power on our home. You saw the same decline with your solar intake and output. How alarming is that, and what do you think is causing that?
Geoengineering is the primary cause. The express purpose of geoengineering or solar radiation management, for your listeners that don't know what that means, that was the decision that governments around the globe, colluding and cooperating, made 70 plus years ago without our knowledge or consent in order to keep business as usual, because they knew the planet was warming then, and it is warming. It's not about Al Gore or carbon credits, it's warming, period. And climate engineering is making it worse. The attempt to hide it is making it worse, just like the pharmaceutical cure for the human body. Side effects far outweigh what it was proposed to cure. So 70 years ago, they began filling the atmosphere with light scattering particles as part of solar radiation management. What's that do overall to all forms of renewable energy, not just solar, but wind and hydro as well?
Right.
So it reduces solar power, reduces hydropower because it disrupts the hydrological cycle, reduces wind power because it disrupts convection and thus disrupts wind patterns. And when your listeners hear this, that doesn't mean that we don't have deluge in places or horrific winds. It doesn't mean that. I'm talking about overall statistics. So yes, we'll have torrential deluge as precipitation is disrupted and migrated from one portion of the planet. It will come down in a deluge somewhere else. Its weather whiplash will get worse and worse and worse.
Now, I was shocked that last week, Dane, and you cover this in your excellent newsletter that I get nearly every day, is something that I look forward to. That being said, the focus was here in the United States with Harvey and Irma. Irma hadn't arrived yet. Harvey had, hit Texas. And while that is going on, there were floods going on all around the world, all at the same time. Entire cities underwater. Nobody was talking about that because of the action that was going on in Texas. I understand that and appreciate it, but it wasn't just us. It seems like it hit all at the same time.
Here's what you have to consider. The atmosphere carries 7% more moisture for every degree C of warming. It looks right now as if we're 3.5 degrees C above baseline. What's that mean? Jimmy, you've heard with the climate conferences, which again are all shams, all distractions, Copenhagen, Cancun, Paris, all shams designed to pacify the population, when in reality, behind the scenes, what's going on is governments around the globe negotiating about climate engineering, not actually doing anything to curb the other forms of destruction. So if we're 3.5 degrees C above baseline, not 2C as these conferences claim we're trying to stay under, because everywhere we check the temperatures, Jimmy, they're not being over-reported. They're being radically under-reported. And I realize people are very programmed to thinking in a certain vein here that this is global warming alarmism. But the fact of the matter is, if we look at data, the temperatures are being radically over-reported. And I have just as much disdain for Al Gore as anyone else. He's a hypocrite. He's part of the power structure. He's a disaster capitalist. But that doesn't change reality. So if we're past 3.5 degrees C right now, that gives you an indication of just how much moisture the atmosphere is capable of holding. And the geoengineers are trying, in a very myopic approach to keeping business as usual and hiding the severity of damage to the climate, they're trying to decrease the overall evaporative cycle. This is where global dimming comes in. And with their light scattering particles, they are thwarting the evaporation cycle. But the atmosphere, the planet is still trying to fill that atmosphere with more moisture. So you're going to have more deluges. And until the planet is allowed to respond on its own, you're going to keep building up pressure in the system. Does that make sense?
It does. And I want to go back to Al Gore really quick. Nothing is more hypocritical. If you are going to talk about global warming and carbon footprints and flying to town on your G5 private jet, I've got an issue with that, man. And, driving around town with a, chauffeur-driven, blacked-out SUV, is not representing correctly. I just have problems with that. So
why wouldn't you?
Yes.
Who shouldn't have a problem with that? Al Gore's the epitome of hypocrisy, period. Why would you own stock in the same companies that you claim to be fighting? How does that make sense?
It doesn't.
And the whole carbon credit nonsense, that's a complete sham as well. But that must not be allowed to stop people from looking at the equation clearly. In regard to Al Gore's data, or what he has stated in regard to the climate, is his data wrong? Yes. It's wrong, severely wrong, but in the opposite direction of what anybody has been led to believe. It's far worse than anything Mr. Gore stated. And I'm not on this show to create any type of popularity or any extra traffic for my site. I can't concern myself with that, because if I do, I'm not going to put out solid, hard data.
Right.
If we look at what's happening right now, and we look at film footage, not anybody believing anybody else, we look at film footage of the cryosphere disappearing around the globe. Chasing Ice, Jimmy, if you've never heard of that film, I would recommend your listeners look at it. It's non-political. They can search it online and watch it for $2, $3. It's won more awards than I could name, but it's frontline film footage. Nobody has to believe anybody. The cryosphere is disappearing. The only thing hiding that fact, Jimmy, you've seen the headlines where it snows over the pyramids, it snows in the United Arab Emirates and so forth. You've seen those headlines.
Yep.
Now, what's that do to the population? It makes them think, yeah, I knew Al Gore the hypocrite was wrong, right? Isn't that what it makes them think?
That's right.
But what they don't publish in those articles when it snows over the pyramids is it would have perhaps 50 degrees or higher. And that's the actual temperatures on the ground, because they're chemical ice nucleating. It's a patented process called chemical ice nucleation for weather modification. Would encourage your listeners, search Ice Boulders, Lake Michigan. Have you ever seen those?
Yes.
So you've seen the shores coated with the 75 to 100 pound perfectly spherical ice boulders.
Absolutely seen that. I still can't explain it.
Let me explain it then. It's chemical ice nucleation for weather modification. The people have never seen that process. We have lab tests posted at geoengineeringwatch.org. And by the way, for anybody that wants to search a particular subject, if they search geoengineeringwatch.org, chemical ice nucleation, or engineering winter storms, or ozone layer destruction, just put our website first and the subject they want to search, they should find something. So we have lab tests that show what happens when you drop several drops of a chemical ice nucleating agent in a vessel of water. It freezes it instantly, and that's why the ice boulders appear. And Jimmy, wouldn't you think that someone in academia would start asking questions when you start having shorelines around the world covered with perfectly spherical ice boulders that have historically never happened?
Blinders. Everybody, and this is the trippy part, Dane, is it is one of the most polarizing subjects you can have.
By design.
It's got everybody fighting and bickering. The scientists are on both sides. Can't seem to agree. And most scientists don't agree. That's beautiful. They can argue their way out of things.
Actually, they do.
Right.
They do.
Right.
Now, have you seen the study that says 30,000 scientists dispute global warming? You ever seen that study?
100% BS. Yes, I have.
100%. You're exactly right. There was none of those names from any credentialed climate scientist was ever produced. Now, this being said, two things to consider with the climate science community. One, they have no First Amendment protection at all. And I've had a NOAA scientist state to my face, we all know climate engineering is going on. We have no First Amendment protection. We can't say anything. We don't know what to do. Now there's a federal gag order. Your listeners can look that up. Federal gag order on all National Weather Service and all NOAA employees. Why would you gag the weathermen if you didn't have something very big to hide?
Why is it? Okay, let's go back to this polarizing thing where we have those out there that are firmly in belief of there is no global warming. It's BS. It's fabricated. That is an extreme view, but it's like half. And then the other half that are behind what is going on and the science and the ice caps are melting and the seas are, temperatures are rising and everything is on the go. How can either side be right? I don't get it.
Let's forget both sides. Let's look at the reality on the ground.
Right.
We just published a few minutes ago while I was on the phone with you. We published another video that has hard frontline data to show where it's cool and where it's not. Where's the anomalous cool zones that stick out like a sore thumb in the whole planet? The eastern half of the continental U.S. of the lower 48, the populated sections of Western Europe. on the latest temperature departure from normal maps, those are the only cool zones besides part of Antarctica where they're also trying to cool things off with chemical ice nucleation, because an iceberg the size of Delaware just broke off about a month ago. You saw that, Larsen C, right?
Yep.
Okay, so how is it possible that this, for example, especially when we're talking about the eastern half of the U.S., this is the most populated zones of the U.S., it's only 0.5% of Earth's surface area, about actually slightly over 0.5%. But that's not the whole world. How is it possible that that patch of the planet has been consistently kept cool for the last several years? Yes, there's been spikes to record highs, but it's consistently kept cool. How can that be unless we're talking about climate engineering and the most powerful military in the world, the U.S. military? But for the people living in those areas, it's simply impossible for them to believe that it could be warm anywhere because it's not warm there. And that psychologically, that's a major aspect of climate engineering. And the last 3 hurricanes we just saw, and we just documented this in the video we just put up, the moisture from those cyclones, because the oceans are scaldingly hot, and the oceans are dying, by the way, by the day. But those cyclones, which I heard on your earlier segment, you were both exactly right. The cyclones are spawning themselves, and they've been being knocked down for, in fact, we had a 4,300-day hurricane, major landfall hurricane drought in the U.S. because they were being knocked down. Now they're letting them spin, and they're steering them. But the moisture from those cyclones is being migrated to certain regions because they need the moisture for the chemical ice nucleation process. And by the way, Jimmy, the Chinese government announced they were doing this. Again, these are patented processes. If your listeners search Chinese government create artificial snowstorm, they'll see Fox News and Popular Science covered it. This is not fringe science. This is reality. So all we're trying to do is get your listeners past the point of their disdain for Al Gore, which I certainly understand, but to actually investigate and understand this simple mantra. The planet's not just warming, it's in a state of total meltdown. And climate engineering is making it worse, not better. And every single environmental group, every single one, Greenpeace, Sierra Club, World Wildlife Foundation, all of them, unimaginable hypocrisy, just like Al Gore. How can any of those groups claim to care about the environment and turn 2 blind eyes to the single greatest environmentally destructive factor of all, climate engineering?
That's right. And just this week, Dane, I saw, and this is how whoever is trying to manipulate, they know the power of the internet these days. And I see this post, and or somebody had sent it to me and said, Jimmy, check this out, man. Here's a video from NASA showing the growth of the polar ice. It is not shrinking. There is more polar ice now than there ever has been in the history of the world. And I'm just like, people buy into this, man. They really, really do.
Because I've had conversations with very intelligent individuals, degreed individuals, that when it came right down to it, they were convinced the planet couldn't be warming because of their disdain for Al Gore. And that's not logical, is it? It's not logical. Because Gore chooses to make money, which is criminal, off this cataclysm while pretending to champion this cause, that doesn't mean that the disaster is not real. And the example I've used often is war. How many people, Jimmy, make money off war from both sides of the fence?
Technically like 6.
Yeah, at the top, yeah. But does that mean the wars didn't happen? Of course not. So right now what we need to look at, the ice mass in the Arctic, for example, the ice mass is about 5% of the 30-year norm. That's the volume. The only thing keeping it statistically from being an ice-free Arctic this year is chemical ice nucleation. And we can see this on NASA World View photographs, which I look at every single day. It's nothing but a floating slush on the surface. And statistically, this is where the data is absolutely skewed beyond belief. What they are counting as ice pack right now, and they show this on charts and graphs as if it's a solid ice pack. What they're counting as ice pack is any section of ocean that has 15% of that ocean covered in slush or more. Now, isn't that still, again, 85% open water? Yes. But when they make a graph, they don't reflect that. Anything in a grid, in part of the grid that they lay out that has 15% of slush or more is considered ice pack. So the bottom line is this. People need to get past NASA, NOAA. We all know they've lied to us on countless levels. Let's look at frontline data like the film Chasing Ice, or the fact that we just had a yacht, a small private yacht, sail to the pole with no icebreaker escort. How did that happen? We had a cruise ship last year, a cruise ship sail through the Northwestern Passage with no icebreaker escort. We had more commercial vessels go through the Northwest Passage last year, I believe almost 500, than any previous year. Look at those kinds of facts. And people need to, again, understand that climate engineering and the attempt to hide that is actually fueling the fire, just exactly like the pharmaceutical industrial complex mentality. And here's the bottom line. If everybody from every side of the fence, Jimmy, all the tribes could unite under this common, simple mantra. The planet's in meltdown. We've been poor stewards of the planet. It's absolutely a meltdown, and climate engineering is making it worse. If we don't stop climate engineering and focus on that, and we can argue about the rest later, if we don't stop climate engineering statistically, mathematically, because it's destroying the ozone layer, disrupting the hydrological cycle, feeding the forest fires, if we don't deal with this issue, Jimmy, statistically, right now, it looks as if our planet will not be able to support life in any manner that will sustain us in perhaps a half decade or less. And we have a NASA engineer working for us right now. If we look at just the ozone destruction alone, his latest statistics, I spoke to him today, his latest statistics, 4 to 8 years until total ozone layer collapse if geoengineering continues. 4 to 8 years. If that happens, that is the end of the road for terrestrial life on Earth. And we're perilously close. Can you feel how hot the sun is, Jimmy?
I can. The last 3 weeks here in Burbank, 110, 112 every single day. I've lived here for 35 years. Never had anything like what we went through these last few weeks. Now, we're going to take a break right here, Dane. But when we come back, I want to go back and visit your comment, which was Earth, Mother Nature, Mother Earth is getting ready to burp. Something's going to happen. So I want to discuss that as well. And I also want to get back to the bees. We've got to get back to the forest fires. We've got to discuss Irma and Jose. We got a lot on the table tonight. Our guest is Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org. More with Dane right after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go Beckley Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product. What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black, Monday. Dane Wigington is our guest tonight. geoengineeringwatch.org is his website. Go sign up for his newsletter, by the way. I start off every day, every other day. I've got something from Dane. I always look forward to it. Tomorrow night, Laura Eisenhower is here. Wednesday, Scott Walter is going to be here joining us again. Now, Dane, I want to get... The graphic that you just sent to me of Irma is so telling with Jose in back of it. We'll talk about that in just a second. But is it possible to steer these hurricanes? Because you look at the line that Irma took, it went directly over that entire string of islands, bullseye, man, bullseye, right across the coast of Cuba. And then up the coast of Florida, it looks like some predestined, pre-charted course.
All I'm asking people to do is look at our data. Look at the video we just posted today. Look at the video we did on Irma. Look at the video we did on Harvey. And they can see with their own eyes the massively powerful radio frequency microwave transmissions which move the particulates in the air, which then moves the air itself. It is steering those hurricanes, and they can see it happen. In actual recorded animation footage from those transmissions taking place while that storm was interacting with those transmissions. There is absolutely no question. So when Harvey comes in, rakes the coast of Cuba, thrashes Cuba, and yet it didn't do so much damage to Florida. We can speculate as to why they backed off on that a little bit. The nuclear plants may have been part of that issue. They may not have been ready for another Fukushima just yet. But the fact that they can steer cyclones is absolutely beyond question. We're only asking people to look at the data. And let's keep in mind, they've been at this for 70 years. Historical fact, Project Cirrus, 1947, Project Storm Fury, 1971, and all the way in between. We have Senate documents, presidential documents. Senate documents on our site, Jimmy, if they search geoengineeringwatch.org Senate document, they'll find this. We were the original ones to find and post this. 750 pages long, speaks specifically about collusion and cooperation between global powers, otherwise opposing nations, but they are cooperating on this issue, all for their own reasons. And on the belief system, Jimmy, if I could back up, since it's September 11, one of the most honorable patriots that comes to my mind when I think of 9/11 is Pat Tillman, who gave up everything. I know you know who Pat is. He gave up everything because he felt he was going to protect his country. And when he found out just how big the lie was and that 9/11 was not what we were told, what did they do to Tillman? They took him out.
That's right.
They took him out. And we're talking about an extremely intelligent individual that was communicating with university staff and he was going to blow the whistle. And they made sure that he wouldn't. And that's what our government does. And Jimmy, I know you've seen Born on the 4th of July, correct?
Of course.
I make myself watch films like that in various intervals so that I can remember certain points and plug them into the equation. So if you remember, for Ron Kovic, the principal in Born on the 4th of July, when he came back and was faced with, after the sacrifice he had already made, was faced with having to examine his own belief system and why he did what he did, and the fact that it was all a complete lie. You saw how difficult it was to break down that belief system. That's a great portrayal in that movie, is it not?
Yes, it is. It's exactly what we're talking about here.
Exactly. And the same is true with the whole climate scenario, environmentalists. We have certainly every reason to have disdain for Al Gore and all the environmental groups. And I am an environmentalist, by the way. I mean, if I could live on a healthy planet, I would live in any primitive form if I could do so. But that being said, the hypocrisy in the environmental community, they're quite happy by and large, and I'm sorry to say this, but it's simply a fact. They're quite happy to focus on some little pet project while the house is burning to the ground, i.e. planet Earth. And I have never felt such disdain for the hypocrisy in that group, and that includes Al Gore. But we have to get around that. We have to hope that those people find their courage and step up to the plate and start helping with climate engineering, because climate engineering supersedes any other environmental issue, and they're ignoring it. But for the rest of us, we have to get around that and understand that not only is it destroying the biosphere, it's toxifying every breath we take. So my hope, Jimmy, is that by sticking to a simple understanding that the planet's in meltdown, we've been poor stewards, and climate engineering is making it worse, that we might make some progress in uniting the tribes and facing a common cause, and that must be climate engineering. What's going on with Jose? I'm looking at this map here. This is the craziest thing that I can imagine. It's gone in a loop. It's gone in a full circle and is now continuing west towards the United States. Yeah, that's a little alarming, isn't it? You know, this is where people need to understand, and I'm sure you've heard from people, Jimmy, who their first knee-jerk response is no one can manipulate the weather, without having done any research, having any comprehension of the documentation that confirms that the weather is in fact very malleable and has been being manipulated for about 3/4 of a century. But you've heard people just knee-jerk with that response, have you not? Of course. So we have to get people past that. And in this regard, when you look at the behavior of Jose, who can say what will happen with Jose at this point? Now, a primary purpose of the last three cyclones, Harvey, Katia, and Irma, one of the primary objectives, again, was to use that as an atmospheric water pump. And I've documented that with animations that are very clear. If you watch the last 8-minute video we just put out, and that moisture was part of what's cooling the eastern U.S. In fact, some of it was pumped quite far north and recirculated back into the U.S. counterclockwise around a low-pressure zone, and then chemically ice nucleated. And this is how much, quote-unquote, control they have over the weather. Now, everything they do, every intervention they proceed with, is tearing apart the natural life support systems of the planet. So this is pounding the nails into our collective coffins. But the scope and scale at which the natural systems have been derailed at this point must be considered total. And one would ask if this is possible, and it appears that's exactly what's going on, but if this is possible, then why can't they do the opposite? Why can't they fly into, if they can do cloud seeding and create snowstorms and rainstorms, why can't they do the opposite and break apart these hurricanes? Well, in the case of the U.S., that's exactly what they've done for almost 4,300 days. They've kept any major landfall from hitting the U.S. Here's what happens when you interfere with the natural hydrological cycle of the planet. We are heading toward what's called Canfield Ocean. That's a superheated, stratified, means the ocean's not mixing, and hurricanes help the oceans mix, lifeless ocean. And we are perilously close to that right now. So although some might feel it's beneficial to stop these cyclones or keep them from hitting land, and it's not just about the ocean, it's about the atmosphere. The cyclones have a very profoundly beneficial effect on the atmosphere as well, even the ozone layer. So when you interfere with Earth's attempt to respond to the damage already done, it's like putting a straitjacket on someone, throwing them in the ocean, expecting them to swim. They're not going to be afloat for long. So the hurricane suppression is not a good thing. And while we had, you may have heard some of the networks who have a certain leaning were focusing on the fact, I think I just heard this on, I can't think of which network it was, but it's irrelevant, but the fact that the 4,300-day hurricane drought was proof that there was no warming on the planet. What they didn't tell you was that around the rest of the world, cyclones are off the scale in frequency and strength. And isn't it interesting, Jimmy, that any country that doesn't toe the line for the U.S. empire, and I'm sorry, but that's what it is. Yes. Gets hammered. Let's take, you know who Duterte is, the new leader of the Philippines. And when he told the U.S. to pack their bags, The Philippines got hammered with Cyclone Haiyan, the strongest landfall ever recorded, and hammered again and again and again. And these leaders know exactly what's going on. Same with, I've mentioned this many times, all the Middle Eastern countries. You remember, since it's 9/11, you remember after 9/11, Jimmy, when General Wesley Clark, a week after, stated every single country that was going to be taken down in the Middle East, right?
Yep.
Is it a coincidence that every single one of those countries underwent a once in 1,000 year drought before the destabilization?
Yep. And what about, I've heard so many military leaders say the same thing. The best way to fight a war now is with weather. You want to get somebody to step in line, you slap them around with a drought for 10 years.
There you go. There you go. And this is where, when the U.S. population has been led to believe, just like Ron Kovic in Born on the 4th of July was led to believe something was an absolute lie. And when you start to see how big that lie is, and it challenges everything that people believe, everything they've ever been told is a lie, that this benevolent country that's the shining city on the hill, in Sarah Palin's words, is anything but that. And it's very difficult for most people to face. But again, I would argue we will either face that fact, deal with it, starting with stopping the climate engineering insanity, or we will all perish. And I mean in the very, very near term. And this is not going to seem real to people, Jimmy, until the store shelves clear out. It's not going to seem real until some big links in the chain start dropping out. And I would argue we are perilously, perilously close to that. We have to beat the power structure to the intersection. And if we could expose this issue, and by the way, we just got word from some contacts in India. And on the respiratory issues, Jimmy, you see every other commercials, asthma, allergy, all year long, every other commercial, right?
Yep.
Those bioavailable and bioaccumulative metals, both bioavailable and bioaccumulative, from climate engineering, starting with aluminum, are building up in all of our systems. They're spraying even more heavily in some places in India, and they're dropping like flies over there. And we have contacts that know this is going on, and they're trying to get cooperation from government officials that are all bought, sold, and paid for. But if we ignored every other aspect of climate engineering, biosphere implosion, ozone layer destruction, just looked at the air we're breathing, that alone should make us consider this a fight for life, shouldn't it?
How do we tell the difference between a chemtrail and a comtrail?
Well, first, the whole contrail narrative, and just if I can touch on one point first, the chemtrail term we need to try to avoid. It is the instant marginalization term, and if people use the science terms, they'll gain traction. And we just saw an example of this when a senator in Arizona was completely crucified. This happened about 2 weeks ago. Kelly Ward. They called her Chemtrail Kelly because she went to a community meeting, which she has a responsibility to do, and the organizers of that meeting used the chemtrail term, so it was stuck on Kelly. So the New York Times completely marginalized her. Now, I would ask this: if the meeting organizers would have used climate engineering or solar radiation management, do you think the New York Times would have labeled Senator Kelly Ward as climate engineering Kelly or geoengineering Kelly? No, I don't think so.
They would have behaved, yes.
Exactly. So the science terms are important. In regard to the contrail narrative, the whole contrail narrative is perhaps the biggest deception ever perpetrated on populations. If you see any bright trail behind an aircraft, chances are, even if it's short-lived, it is not condensation. And we know this for two reasons. The high bypass turbofan jet engine, which is all commercial aircraft, all military tankers, jet-powered fan, 85% of the air that moves through that is non-combusted. That engine is by design nearly incapable of creating any condensation trail. Two, film footage. We have numerous film footage clips of even the short, bright trails being turned on and off, not condensation. Let's back up even further. Jimmy, World War II, how many times have you heard this defense from people who don't want to believe what's happening in our skies? The B-17's all big trails, correct?
Right.
Now, we have film footage I found on military archives. We'll post this soon. We have film footage of the B-17 trails being turned off. You can't, turned off as if it was cut with a knife, instant turn off, as you've seen with some of the jet aircraft.
Right.
That's not condensation. We know the B-17s had water vapor injections on them. That's historical fact. But it appears, because they started climate engineering in 1945, immediately when the war was over, they had to be testing before that. And it appears that the B-17s were in fact being used for aerosol dispersions. Yes, that made them more visible. Yes, that made them a much easier target. Do we think the power structure gave a damn about that? Absolutely not. Just an excuse to build more aircraft. So we have film footage, again, of a B-17s turning that trail off as if it was cut with a knife. That's not condensation. So the bottom line is this. That whole narrative is absolutely deception, and people need to understand the science behind this to understand why that's so.
Now, we were just up at Mount Shasta. We didn't come by and say hi. We should have, but nonetheless, we were up there for the eclipse. And what I found interesting, Dane, talking to there in McLeod, we stayed in McLeod. Talking to the locals up there, they all had these amazing comments to me when they found out, who I was and what I did and so forth. Dude, all they do all day long is spray. That's all they do every day. They're spraying right now. And I heard this over and over again. These are the locals up there. These aren't conspiracy tinfoil hat. These are people that are looking up in the sky, watching the spraying going on. What is it that you live up there? What is it that they are trying? What's the objective with doing that over a heavily forested mountainous area?
Well, first, let's start with the fact that the most heavily geoengineered locations on the planet are the polar regions. And that's where they started. And that's why we had, Jimmy, if you recall, do you remember in about the mid-70s when there was a lot of discussion as to why wasn't the planet continuing to warm? Were we entering another ice age? You remember that dialogue in the 70s?
Yep.
So here's how we got there. By 1945, in our data, we have a number of articles that outline this whole scenario, but there's no statistical dispute. The warming of the planet was heading almost straight up in 1945. And suddenly, unexplainably, it leveled off completely until the mid-70s. They fully deployed climate engineering in 45, and it had a very profound effect before the negative consequences kicked in. But since the power structure doesn't consider those consequences, they never do they? That's why they detonate 2,000 nuclear bombs and build nuclear plants all over the planet. But the negative consequences, ozone destruction, hydrological cycle, disruption, had not kicked in. So you had that lull as they were engineering over the poles, which masked the severity of what was unfolding for a considerable amount of time. So although some people have tried to conclude that they geoengineer more over the urban areas, that's not the case. The most heavily geoengineered zones are the polar regions. And Jimmy, to back this up, in our 20-page color glossy booklet, we try to put out credible, solid, verifiable data so people can have materials to share with others to help wake them up. And I found it's published in that book, and it's on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. And I found a Navy archival photo of a U.S. submarine surfaced at the North Pole in February of 1959 in open water. No ice at the North Pole in 59. How come that was never disclosed? How could it be there at that time? And this is because, again, the masking of the true frontline data has been so extensive. And with chemical ice nucleation, they've been able to temporarily rebuild some of those ice packs, even though the oceans are warming, even though the planets are warming. Again, we're back to the 70-pound ice balls in Lake Michigan with 40-degree water. But those photos prove this scenario, and the historical data proves it as well. So the bottom line is this. We're back to Ron Kovic, born on 4th of July, that had to challenge everything he ever believed in. We all need to do that. We all need to wipe the slate clean and examine everything anew. And only by doing this can we have any chance of having a clear compass heading, an accurate compass heading, and making a difference at this late hour. We all have to look through a clear lens.
What happens if we lose the bees?
Well, I think Einstein answered that, right? No more people. And now we're losing the oceans, we're losing the forest. Let me put some statistical data behind the forest that you acknowledge we're burning down around the globe, and you're exactly right. We've lost over 3.4 trillion trees. That's 55% of Earth's tree cover. The rest are sick, dead, and dying. Everything is imploding. And at this stage, it's again, I stress, it's a non-linear equation. In the oceans, plankton populations down globally, at least 60%. No plankton, no people, no trees, no people, no ozone layer, no people. And all are converging at once. We're losing oxygen content. Global oxygen content, atmospheric breathable oxygen content is declining precipitously. You might be aware of that.
Yes.
All of these converging. So what I would suggest for all of us, we must focus on this common cause, which is, again, the single greatest threat to the entire web of life of all short of nuclear cataclysm. And that's why I'm focused on this. This is not something, again, I wanted to do or ever imagined I would be doing, but how does one ignore this? And by the way, I did just send you a link. It's called Mass Animal Die-Off 2017 for your listeners. Mass Animal Die-Off 2017. Again, it's a spiritual site, but they're very good at posting their data, and it's shocking.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Yeah, our audience beat you to the punch on that. We just we tweeted that out about 5 minutes ago. But thank you for that. And also, we got the links up for your latest video too. Those have now gone out into social media. What happened? Not to be, I mean, we need to raise the awareness and speak about this. We can't bury our head in the sand. But what would happen when we say this? What would Mother Nature do? What would Mother Earth do? Would it just be impossible to live? In other words, just a lifeless planet with nothing on it at all?
Venus is the most comparable example we have.
Right.
And if your listeners search geoengineering Venus syndrome, they'll see exactly the track we're on. And so to put this in perspective, Jimmy, most people think that Venus is 900 degrees on the surface because of its proximity to the sun, correct?
Yeah, that's what they think, yes.
That's what they think, yeah. And mathematically, Venus would be 20 to 25 degrees warmer than Earth, all things being equal. Its oceans that now it's believed it had are in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is 100 times thicker. And this is where the complete misguidedness of climate engineering becomes apparent. Venus's albedo, its reflectivity, its atmosphere, 2.5 times more reflective than Earth, but it's still 900 degrees on the surface. So the premise on which geoengineering is being pushed, that by putting light scattering particles in the sky to increase the Earth's reflectivity will somehow slow global warming, is a very, very flawed premise, because it, again, does all the effects we've already been over, and it traps more radiant heat than it deflects. There is no benevolence in climate engineering, none. So we are on track for Venus syndrome. And people who think, again, any such scenario would take perhaps hundreds of millions of years or longer, that is not true. In fact, once you tilt the scale, once you lose Earth's energy balance, feedback loops feed the equation. There's at least 50 right now, 50 plus feedback loops. And a feedback loop, again, let's take methane, and I'm not talking about cow flatulence, we're talking about methane expulsion. I know you know what that is from the seafloor, methane hydrates, methane clathrates. And I'll send you a photograph in a moment, and your listeners can look up Siberian methane holes, and they'll be shocked, these massive blowout craters, because the methane is thawing, building up pressure, and blasting violently into the atmosphere, covering the planet like a layer of gas. So when we have that happen, the planet warms. This is only one feedback loop. Methane thaws, explodes into the atmosphere, more warming, more methane thaws, more explosions. It feeds itself, correct?
Yes. And with those craters, let me jump in here. With those craters, what was funny is the media, the way that they treated that is they don't know what is causing them. They're just appearing. And then I had read a couple of other reports out of Russia that said that this was methane expulsion blowing out from below the surface. Now, obviously, they don't want that to get into the media, so they try to lie about it, saying that they don't know what's causing these craters.
Thank you for doing due diligent investigation, and that's what they're paid to do, to not know. So in regard to the methane blowouts, in January of 2015, we had about a week of coverage for a rotten egg smell blowing into Seattle, Washington. Even mainstream media covered it, but all the official sources said they just didn't know what that could be. And that's thawing methane hydrate and hydrogen sulfide deposits releasing from the seafloor. Hydrogen sulfide is heavier than methane, heavier than air. Methane migrates up, hydrogen sulfide stays down, migrating into Seattle, and all the authorities don't know what it is. I know personally USDA scientists, Forest Service, Fish and Game. I've been in the field with scientists that I know measuring soil pHs in Shasta-Siskiyou County. pHs, by the way, that have altered 10 to 12 times toward alkaline, from 5.4, 5.5 to 6.6, 6.8 because of the amount of aluminum in the rain. That's an unimaginable amount of aluminum. But in the field with these scientists who know this is going on, taking tests with them, they were shocked by those tests because we have the baselines, we have the official baselines, and none of them will face this issue. So what's their story? Just like the story with the methane blowholes. We don't know what's affecting the pH. We don't know because we're paid not to know. And that's where the betrayal of academia is unimaginable. And I don't care if there's a gag order on you or not. There's ways to get the word out. We have a legal team, Jimmy, the Legal Alliance to Stop Geoengineering, and our primary attorney is with a firm that specializes in whistleblower protection. If there's anyone in your audience that has anything to share that can help us get climate engineering to light once and for all, find a way to contact us and we'll put you directly with that firm, and they can protect you as much as that can be said. We all know that there are exceptions, but I would offer this at the same time. Hiding will not save you. When the Titanic goes down and we're all on it, will not save you. So if you're not going to speak out now, for anybody who's listening and has anything to share that would help us, then when?
I already know there's going to be a couple of people reaching out to you right now. So let's get ready to take a break here, Dane. And when we come back, last month, or maybe, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't last month, maybe 3 months ago, I did a report over here and also on Coast to Coast about the salt that that they're spraying and experimenting with in Antarctica right now. Now, before you answer, let's talk about that when we come back, because there's nothing dumber sounding to me than spraying salt in the air. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org. More with Dane right after this break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy.
Hi, I'm Matt Ray for U.S. Gold Bureau. I cover the market daily. No matter how strong it gets or what long-term predictions say, you can count on one thing as certain. There will be another crash. It will affect your assets. And when it happens, wouldn't you rather be 2 weeks or even 2 months ahead of the curve? Well, Wall Street insiders have been quietly converting their assets into gold for the last few years. Now it's your turn. Buying gold and silver is easier than buying stocks. With the U.S. Gold Bureau's Investor Guide, it's free, and you learn how to buy precious metals in or out of an IRA or 401k retirement plan. Your investment's shipped directly to your home and is 100% insured and guaranteed. You control your investments and shelter them against the stock market, politics, and unknown threats. Act while your dollar is still worth something. Call U.S. Gold Bureau, 800-885-GOLD. U.S. Gold Bureau, 800-885-GOLD, 800-885-GOLD. Call today.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Simple enough. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Our guest tonight, Dane Wigington. His website, of course, is geoengineeringwatch.org. Now, Dane, I did this report a few months ago about the testing that is going on in Antarctica. Spraying a chemical that will help reflect the sun's rays, right, and cool the planet. But the byproduct from the chemical is salt, and then it would literally rain salt. And my thought is salt water on our crops on the planet is not a good idea. But they are actually considering this.
Well, this is just another red flag, though. The reason they study in Antarctica, it's considered the cleanest air on the planet still, even though they're geoengineering over those regions, because those elements are not being tested for. So this is another red herring. I'm sure you've seen the publications about the hot air balloon that they were going to use to do solar radiation experiments. They were going to release some materials from a hot air balloon, as if they're not doing it from jet aircraft all over the globe every single day for decades. They put forth these type of tests to give the appearance that geoengineering is just a proposal, science community is just dabbling in this, and that pacifies the population. It's one more red herring to help put them back to sleep. And that's really the primary purpose down there. And the obvious conclusion that you already came to, of course, the negative consequences are massive, but let's look at along the same lines. Every science institution on the planet is discussing solar radiation management, the intentional dispersion of light scattering particles into the atmosphere to block sunlight. Not once, ever, on any scientific study do they ever mention that, by the way, whatever we put up there is going to come back down here where we all have to breathe it. Jimmy, did you see the exchange I had with it was at an international geoengineering conference with the world's most recognized geoengineer, Dr. David Keith. Have you ever seen that short exchange with he and I?
Absolutely.
So for your listeners, after a 3.5-hour symposium with Dr. David Keith, and they can find this exchange if they search Dane Wigington, David Keith. Only 5 minutes long. It's online. But after that 3.5 hours, and they only allowed 3 questions from about 100 researchers and press. And my question to Dr. Keith was, after this 3.5-hour symposium where he stated the specific goal of putting 20 million tons of aluminum nanoparticles, and by the way, the smaller the particle, the more lethal it is, into the atmosphere annually. And I questioned him, was there any studies done, toxicological effects, human health effects, soil toxology? And he tried to dodge that question by stating, well, mathematically, there's a lot of particles in the atmosphere. A little more won't hurt. That's basically what he said. And before they cut me off, I pinned Dr. Keith down and said, those particles are not aluminum. Have you studied aluminum? And it's a very damning 5 minutes, because you can see he's a deer in the headlights. And his final response is this: have we studied the toxicological effects of aluminum? No. Could terrible things happen tomorrow? We don't know. What kind of response is that from the world's most recognized geoengineer? But it shows the cavalier attitude of the science community that thinks the planet is a giant physics lab for them. And that's where we're at.
Yeah. You just find out who's funding his research. Monsanto, right?
Exactly. and even with Dr. Keith, he's simply a public PR prop in the play. That's all he is, because there are much bigger fish in this equation. But they put people like Dr. Keith out there just to keep everybody off their balance, if you will. But the size, scope, and scale of these programs is truly unimaginable. But the fact that they're going on is undeniable. When's the last time you saw a truly blue sky, Jimmy?
Well, I live in Burbank. You know that answer. That's never. I'll tell you something else. I know we laugh about it, but it's true. I remember you and I talking a couple of years ago, and I had told you then that here in Burbank, where we were going through this drought, suddenly this little article showed up in one of the local newspapers that said they had just approved $500,000, not much money, right? But they approved $500,000 for 7 cloud seeding stations to be placed along the foothills here in Burbank to create more rain. What happened? Months of rain last year. Drought ended. And if you ever question about what's really going on and if they are pumping stuff into the atmosphere, that little thing just went in and out of the media and escaped the public eye. But it was just like, look, they are controlling the weather. They're doing it right here in the valley.
I would add this to that equation, though. That was not a result of those seeding stations. Those are a red herring to pacify the population. So if we compare the amount of particulate matter that could be measured in a few kilograms that those stations are able to put in the atmosphere, and now let's look at the payload of a KC-10 military tanker that can carry about 170,000 pounds in one trip. And we look at the stated goal of the geoengineers of 20 million tons annually. All of the local weather mod stations are simply designed to take the public's attention off of the geoengineering elephant in the room. And as far as the rain we got last year, and where I live, Jimmy, in Northern California, we got about 80 or 90 inches. Now, that sounds like a lot, doesn't it?
It's about double the normal, but it's also high desert. Yeah.
Well, for here, no, I'm in Northern California, so we're in forest. Our normal annual is 70. We got about 80 or 90.
Okay.
It's drier now here at this moment, and the fuel moistures in the forest are lower than they have ever been, ever. Our pond levels are lower than they've ever been. The forest is drier and dying faster than it has ever dried or died. And now we have a term called flash drought. So even though we got rain, and the rain is toxic, by the way, after that, what do we have? We have a dome of high pressure over us, the ridiculously resilient dome, which is an ionosphere heater, orchestrated dome of high pressure, which helps divert the jet stream over us, which is part of what cools the interior U.S. There's articles on our site to document all of this. But with that type of scenario, the desiccant nature, the moisture-absorbing nature of these particulates siphons the moisture out of everything. It dries up everything. We have no dew. The humidities are incredibly low. And now we have the term flash drought. In fact, we have a flash drought disaster in several states right now, and that's what they're calling it. If you go back 20 years, had you ever heard of the term flash drought?
Yep. No, not
20 years ago. Yeah.
No, not at all. And something else was interesting. We drove up to Shasta. We didn't fly. We drove. And so when you drive through the Central Valley there, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's one billboard after another in front of each one of the farms that is stating we have no water, no jobs. And it's all the way up the Central Coast. This feeds not only the country, this feeds the world. Yet all of this rain came in. Supposedly the drought had ended, but at one farm after another for hundreds of miles is saying that they don't have any water.
they don't. And at this point, the Central Valley is going through incredible subsidence. It's sinking. In fact, in some regions of the Central Valley, the rate of subsidence is as much as 1 inch a month. That's a staggering rate. How long will that aqueduct that runs from north to south function at that rate of subsidence? So that the supposed drought-ending winter we had last year didn't end the drought. We have trees dying everywhere. I mean, the Sierras, the Cascades, the rate of die-off is absolutely immense. And now, also, if you drove up I-5, you probably saw a number of dead, dying orchards that have been abandoned.
Left and right, both sides of the freeway.
Correct. So what we have is two other issues. So we have bioavailable aluminum in the rain. That affects the root system. So the root systems are dying off in the same manner that the canopies are dying off. The crowns of the trees, or you see they're dying with a lot of dead sticks sticking out. Roots are doing the same. So we have bioavailable aluminum in the rain. We have immense UV radiation, not just UVA and UVB, but now we have UVC on the surface of the earth. That's the last band of UV before X-ray. This is a DNA-altering band of UV radiation. It's hitting us right now. We have the data to back that up. So you have that affecting all forms of plant life. And as the temperatures are so extraordinarily high, and we've been at about 100 degrees or higher in Northern California next to Lake Shasta for about 4 months straight, photosynthesis stops at 104 degrees, stops. Tapers down to that point, stops completely at 104. When you add the UV, when you add the bioavailable aluminum, also DNA altering, we are in uncharted territory, period.
How are you guys doing up there? We were just there, and while we were there, a huge forest fire broke out, and we had to deal with that, the smoke, and it was right there. How long did that forest fire last, or is it still going on?
I don't know if there's one going on at Mount Shasta because I'm actually next to Lake Shasta, so I'm about 50 miles south. I'm on the east side of Lake Shasta. But as far as the combustibility of the forest, it's immense. And let's go back to one more major item that's most directly connected to climate engineering and something that the entire environmentalist community is completely off base about and not willing to tell the truth about. The forest burn downs, which they hang completely around the neck of global warming, which is occurring, but the primary cause in the case of the forest burn downs is climate engineering. Why? It disrupts the hydrological cycle. In fact, Jimmy, let me go back even further. 5.2 million years ago, the Pliocene epoch, an epoch in Earth's history where the carbon was much higher than it is today. Did we have a burning and dying Western U.S.? No. We had a thriving, lush Western U.S. because there was more rain that didn't contain aluminum, an ozone layer that was intact. We had sea levels that were 100 feet higher. That's a problem for modern civilization. But the reason the forests are dying, the primary reason, the planet can't respond with the hydrological cycle, so it rains very sporadically. The rain that does come down is toxic. We have the intense UV radiation, which I already mentioned. We have the root systems being poisoned. We have more dry lightning because the atmosphere is more conductive with less rain because of the desiccant particles I already mentioned. So we have, again, more dry lightning, more volatile forests. We have a forest that's covered. The foliage is covered with incendiary materials that are combustible. These metals are combustible. From every conceivable direction, the single greatest causal factor for the forest burn downs all over the globe is climate engineering. And once that happens, that's a feedback loop also. The carbon goes into the atmosphere. The black soot settles on the ice in the polar regions, making it dark, melting it faster. Everything starts to feed on itself. That road leads back to climate engineering.
And what do we do with the critics out there that say that this is just natural? We've had massive forest burn downs before man was here. Lightning strikes and everything everything regrows, and the soil regenerates, and this is just part of the natural cycle of life. How do you respond to that?
The first thing I would say is you can't wake somebody up who's pretending to be asleep, because that's about the most irrational position, and I know that position all too well.
Right.
I used to be able to plant myself 300 saplings in a day, plugs they're called. I could do it myself in a day. I've done a lot of habitat restoration. I would be doing that the rest of my life as a hermit in the forest if I didn't have to do this. And this is what I feel I must do. You can't do that now. You have a 0% success rate. if you try to plant saplings now. So you're not going to be able to regrow the forests. As far as this being natural.
Well, what do you mean by that? Hold on, Dane. What do you mean you can't be successful doing that? Why?
Because they won't make it through the summer. The conditions are so horrifically different than they were even 15 years ago. The summer's now not 3 months long, it's 6 or 8 months long. And the saplings you plant in the winter are exposed to bioavailable aluminum, which deters their root growth. They're exposed to immense UV. If they even make it till spring, they don't make it past June. They certainly won't make it through the summer. Zero. Even the mature, dominant trees are dying everywhere. Our trees right now are native oak trees. The leaves are burnt to a crisp and hanging on the trees. The UV is so intense. So you can't just regrow these forests. And the notion that this is natural, given what we've done to the planet, we have been horrible stewards of the planet, and the greatest form of that is climate engineering. I could give numerous examples of how irrational that this is just normal statement is. It's like saying, if you run someone over in a crosswalk and then claim they died of a heart attack, or you shoot them in the back of the head and claim they died of a heart attack. There's nothing natural about dying in that manner when you sped the process up. And also, the current changes, statistically, mathematically, scientifically, your listeners can look this up. The changes that are occurring on our planet right now are happening at minimum 170 times faster than at any previous point in Earth's history based on paleo data. There's nothing natural about this. The species extinction rate right now of 200 to 300 a day, 200 to 300 species of plant, animal, and insect a day going extinct. That's 15,000 times background rates. That's 1.5 million% of normal. Nothing normal about that. So we're simply talking about people who refuse to open their eyes.
Now, I'm going to continue being devil's advocate because I love your
Please.
answers on all of this stuff, okay? We've gone through 5, 6, we can call it 5.5, great extinction events where 50 to 90% of everything on the planet was wiped out. But yet, quite rapidly, everything was repopulated. And so this is, again, just something cyclical and something natural. How do you respond?
Well, let's take a specific example, the Pedum event, the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum 55 million years ago. Methane mass extinction happened in blinding speed. There was an escalation of perhaps 10 degrees C in about 13 years based on paleo data. And now we add what we're doing to the planet on top of that. We've triggered these processes. In regard to things recovering, that's a very relevant term because we are already through the guardrail. There will be no recovery of this planet in any time frame that matters. The recovery period after the Pedum event was perhaps 10 to 20 million years. That's a long time.
Right.
And now we're in, again, uncharted territory because what happens now when industrialized civilization collapses? What happens? We have 400 plus Fukushimas. There'll be no way to cool or cold shut down any of those plants. So now we have a nuclear planet as well. We have a destroyed ozone layer. We have Canfield Ocean. We're in much worse situation or much worse scenario than the Pedum event 55 million years ago. So again, there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions that are based on nothing other than a headline or a rumor, no research at all. I salute you, for example, with the methane craters, when the quote-unquote experts here said, gee, we just don't know. I salute you for digging deeper, and that's what we all have to do. We have to question, challenge everything we thought we believed, clean the slate, look through a clear lens, because time is absolutely not on our side. We are so perilously close to hitting the wall at full velocity.
What do we do, though, Dane? Because I'm not so sure. It doesn't matter who's sitting in the White House, who's in the Oval Office. They may not even be made aware of what has been going on because these systems are in place, and they'll be in place after the president leaves office. So what do we do as Earthlings? What do we do?
Well, first of all, I can tell you almost firsthand that I know Trump's aware because I work directly and communicate directly with a retired U.S. Air Force Major General that had Trump's top campaign people and Carson's top campaign people January 2016 in his home with our materials presenting our data specifically on this issue. They absolutely know. But back to what you stated earlier, which I fully agree with. The individual who holds the White House is simply a puppet. We could go all the way back until Kennedy, which he tried to draw a line in the sand. How long did he live?
Right.
So we're dealing with powers that are much more in control than the individual that holds the White House. What do we do? I would argue there's no other way forward than reaching a critical mass, and that involves people sharing credible data and making this their priority. And if we could do that, if we could wake up the Ron Kovics, and Ron Kovic was a good man, is a good man. I think he's still alive. And there's so many like him that simply are not looking through a clear lens. And if we could bring this issue to the light of day, where the families of military personnel and even private industry personnel, the people that work for Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, all of whom are involved in these programs, if they were made to realize what their family members involved with, and we brought this issue to light, I would argue like no other issue, this will cause a shockwave all over the globe in every single country, because it affects everyone equally. The air we breathe, the soils we grow in, the atmosphere, the weather systems we need to survive. If we could get this to light, it would be a paradigm shift. And it doesn't mean our problems are over, but we must reach a critical mass of awareness where this issue can't be hidden, and it'll drag everything to the surface with us. With it, when the population realizes without their knowledge or consent they were made lab rats 70 years ago, getting worse all the time. This is mathematically the single greatest assault in the web of life. How do we get there? Again, sharing credible data is absolutely critical. And we make those materials available at the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. So if people had those, instead of pointing at the sky and ranting and raving and putting up whoever they're discussing this with, putting up people's defenses, share credible data, let it absorb. It takes time. You can't just shatter somebody's paradigm of the world in a moment. And if we could do that, Jimmy, we could perhaps change the flavor of what we face. We could perhaps salvage something. And I would argue that's worth fighting for. And no matter what, I would argue this as well, for every individual whose field of vision we may have a part in helping to expand, whose consciousness we help to expand, whose compassion we help to expand, doesn't that matter in and of itself?
It does. And we've pinned ourselves into a corner, and then we have the contributions of the solar activity in the sun, which is not helping the situation. It's only making it worse. But is the sun contributing to all of these factors that we're creating already?
No. And we need to use the Occam's razor premise to bear that out. People who have chosen to believe the baseless lie that the entire solar system is heating, that is not backed up by scientific data. And no matter what else is happening, no matter what else is going on, we're back to running the person over in the crosswalk. Even if that person had leukemia, maybe they had lung cancer, whatever else they had, whatever cosmological factors there may be. And I'm a student of cosmology, a lay student. But whatever other factors there may be, we have to resort to Occam's razor, all things being equal. The most obvious conclusion is the correct one. When we know the cause and effect of what's happening here, spraying the atmosphere with these particulates, destroying the ozone layer, doing everything we've already described, when we know that cause and effect and we see it happening, we must focus on that as being the primary factor in the equation. We must, logically, rationally, scientifically. So I encourage people to not look at a headline and accept it, every headline that's dangled before their face, and there's far too many people doing that. But look below the surface. Abandon everything you thought you knew and look through a clear lens. And this equation will become quite easy to decipher then.
Who are besides the direct stuff, the direct geoengineering and HARP and spraying and so forth of particulates, but then we have China and India that pretty much don't care what they burn and put into the atmosphere. They may say that they do, but they don't. What do we do about that, and is that a big contributor as well?
Absolutely. With you on every point you made. And we're faced with a very bleak equation, and many don't want to hear this, but the planet can't support the current population with the current paradigm. It can't. It's too badly damaged. The current construct is too resource intensive. The average calorie of food travels 1,500 miles. We're consuming we're burning up 15 calories to acquire 1 for food energy. 15 to 1. You can't live with this kind of equation. So we are faced with mass die-off. And in fact, I published some months ago that statistically it looked like we were going to have about 20 million starve to death in the next few months from that point, and that's playing out right now. Those in power know this is happening, and they have helped to create this paradigm. If anybody needs to walk the plank, it should be them first. But the bottom line is life holds no guarantees. Life is a seasonal occupation, is it not, Jimmy?
It is.
So what are we going to be found doing when that season ends? And no matter how bleak the horizon, I would argue there is solace only in facing it head on, not flinching, not turning away, but face to the storm head on. And there is much good we can still do, even at this dark hour. And I don't pretend to know how the dominoes will unfold, but I know that if we don't play our part in the play properly, using our will correctly, honorably, then we have not passed this test. Quite simply.
We're going to be headed towards a break right here, but I wanted to hit you with this. I always listen to people older than myself. You know, that's where you get the knowledge from. You just do. And this woman said to me, it was about 10 years ago, let me tell you what the problem is in the world. We only plant female trees and plants for their fruits. We don't plant the male trees. And that is what is going to bring us down. Now, it was a basic statement, but I stepped back and I said, okay, why are they doing that? Well, because of allergies and because of other reasons. And you know, but they only plant the female versions of everything. Now, it sounds kind of dramatic, but is she right?
Well, I would certainly agree with that as a small part of the equation we face, but if we have a planet that doesn't support any life, and we are perilously close to that, that negates all other points. And as far as environmental stewardship, there's a long list of those types of crimes, if you will. We have forest companies slaughtering the diversity of the forest, planting back monocultures all over the globe. I mean, all this is horribly wrong for the web of life, but we are perilously close to, again, a planet that won't sustain any life. Even the fish farms are dying now. You know that, right?
Yep,
Jimmy?
Yep.
I mean, we have, in any given day, we might have 30, 40, 50 tons going belly up in fish farms. The oceans are even freshwater deoxygenating as well. And, we lose the insects, we lose the fish, we lose the trees, we lose the ozone layer. We have no habitat.
It's really, and the other part, and we're going to take a break right here, but it's so fundamental and so basic. Everything is grown and pollinated and cycled through bees. That's it. Nature has figured it out for us. You want to take that out of the equation, you want to give me the answer. There isn't one if that is taken, and we're in a catch-22 here. Everything now is working against each other. Once you break that link in the chain, you can't fix it.
You can't. In regard to the bees, I would encourage your listeners to look up bees/aluminum. You know, we have peer-reviewed study now to prove the bees are dying of massive aluminum exposure.
That's right. That's right. They can't fly. They can't. Their wings don't operate. Isn't that?
They have symptoms of Alzheimer's and dementia.
Alzheimer's,
reports actually state that. Yeah.
Right. Crazy. All right, let's take a break right here. When we come back, Dane, we've got to talk about 9/11. So let's do that when we come back. Our guest tonight, Dane Wigington. Of course, his website is geoengineeringwatch.org. More with Dane after this short break. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on jimmychurchradio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation. And Angioprim is the result, a safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on the smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You just click right there. We've also got it up in Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at jchurchradio. Simple, at jchurchradio. You can go and join either of the chat rooms over at KGRA or Spreaker, or join us over on Twitter. Dane, are you on Twitter?
I have someone that helps me there. I'm not myself active. They share our data on Twitter for us.
Okay. Do you know your Twitter handle? We'll get it up there.
I wish I could accurately give you that right now. I'm sorry. I'm totally disconnected from that. But it is being done for me. I'm trying to tend so many fires in this battle, about 80 hours a week. The urgency of our situation cannot be overstated. So I'm simply trying to utilize every tool at my disposal to try to get as much done as I can in a given day.
I'll tell you what's really crazy with this weather control stuff. Here we have just the craziest weather news and natural disaster news that we've had probably in a couple of centuries that all went down this week, and nearly completely overshadowed today, which is 9/11. I would be remiss if I didn't state the obvious. It seems like it was almost by design. It just took over the news, and if it was another 24 hours later, it would have buried today, being the anniversary of 9/11, way back in the headlines.
and then we would have been into tomorrow 9/12, and it would have been forgotten. I don't think it's coincidence.
I don't think so either. And I think your discussion before I came on the air was exactly on the right track as well, whether it's North Korea, 9/11, or a lot of other issues. That's one of the many objectives of the power structure and the climate modification issue is to provide mass distraction, division, and confusion in the population. Again, not just the lies of omission that we're discussing, but the confusion, distraction, division as to in regard to the true state of the climate, for example. So it serves many, many agendas to try to keep the population busy while the noose is being sucked around our collective necks while the walls are tumbling down around us. So it's all the above, yes.
Yeah, and I wasn't making light of it. I was stating the obvious. You know, if you are somebody that's begging for headlines out there, like Kim Jong-un, you know, we call him Kim Fatty Fat around here, and or ISIS or anybody else, you got overshadowed. It was a bad week if you were trying to do that. And then today, seriously, and then
you're right. No, you're right.
Yeah, today the UN passed these massive sanctions on North Korea, and Kim Fatty Fat tried to reply with, okay, well, we're getting ready to unleash hell on you guys. Well, you know what? None of that got heard. The UN just quietly passed these sanctions. Nobody's listening to what North Korea has to say because we're dealing with these natural disasters here. And I would say it's nearly by design.
It is a part of the equation. I absolutely agree with you 100%. There are many, many other factors as well. And if we look at the recent disasters of Harvey and Irma, we have the possible effect in the case of Houston affecting oil prices. Those disasters allow the maneuvering of military into civilian positions. We have the climate scenario, which is inarguable. I mean, the constant cooling down of the most populated zones in the U.S. is not an accident. That's absolutely climate engineering. We have hard data to back that up. And in regard to those cool down zones, let me give you one bit of statistical data there, because I communicate with some commercial and private jet airline pilots as well. They reached out to me. And here's what they're sharing with me, that they are seeing nothing but very extreme positive temperature anomalies at altitude. What's that mean? It means it is only far above normal at altitude. The only cool layers are on the ground because cool, dense air settles to the ground. You might have a few 100-foot depth of it. When they chemically ice nucleate massive amounts of moisture like Irma, just like your freezer in the market, Jimmy, that does no top on it, everything's frozen because the cold air sits there, and that's exactly what's happening. So they're able to create that illusion when at altitude they're seeing massive high-temperature anomalies. In fact, the first Gulfstream pilot to reach out to me did so because twice in his Gulfstream aircraft, and they fly some of the big political people to the big campaign conferences and so forth. Their aircraft alarms went off and put them into a forced descent because it was almost 50 degrees above normal at that altitude where they were at. The air would not carry that aircraft, and these guys are alarmed. One former military pilot. So we have to look past the illusion of, in this case, climate engineering and the effects it creates on the ground. When we look at the bigger picture, we see a very different image.
The events of 9/11, when I think about it, last night I went and watched Loose Change once again, right? I watched that last night, and I know it's Alex Jones, and I get all of that, but it's a pretty well laid out documentary and
pretty good film.
Yeah,
it is.
It really is. And what's alarming to me, it's all of the obvious stuff is fine. But what's alarming to me is that there are people in positions of power that actually have the mindset to work in these directions. That, you know, no morals, completely polluted, dark souls that have an agenda that they're going to push forward, you know, basically money driven or power driven, but that this actually occurs. And the why, this is why it relates to geoengineering. It's the same mindset. It's the same dark perversion. It's one and the same thing.
It's exactly the same. And in fact, let's weave 9/11 into climate engineering, if I may have just a moment. So
absolutely.
If we look at 9/11, that was the license that unleash the military-industrial complex to invade whoever they want and take what resources they want. Let's look at energy extraction and the amount of energy it takes to acquire energy now. In the year 1900, it took about 1 barrel of hydrocarbon to recover 100 barrels, 100 to 1 ratio. We're down to about 1 in 5 or 1 in 6.
Right.
The energy extraction is much more energy intensive now. You know that. So we also have energy net negatives, like the tar sands in Alberta. It takes about 1.4 units of energy to get 1 out of it. Why would you bother? It's an energy net negative because they need a certain form of hydrocarbon, as you know. So we're back to 9/11, why they had to have that happen, to give them the license to invade the other energy-rich countries to acquire those resources while they could, because also if we look at the amount of energy being used to fly the amount of jet aircraft all over the sky, trying to keep business as usual. And this is one of the primary aspects of climate engineering, the fact that we're all getting sicker and dumber by the day, literally dumber. IQs are dropping, as you know as well, Jimmy. The metals we're absorbing are making us less cognitively functional. All those are benefits to the power structure. But on top of that, they have to have the resources they need to keep that many aircraft in the air, to keep pulling off these massive climate engineering feats in order to keep the population confused, divided, and with no compass heading until the last possible moment. So all of these events, and I know you know this, also completely intertwined with the cancerous military-industrial complex that's concerned about one thing, its own proliferation at any cost until the planet dies.
That's it. You've got the only way to expand is to continue war. And to think about how many years that we have been in this war, and it was a blank check, a complete blank check. Fight something that you can't even see. Let's call it terrorist. Let's go. And it has not stopped. I don't know why the world isn't fed up with it. The United States. I can't think of the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that could have gone into A, feeding the planet, B, cleaning up the planet, and making things just better all the way around. But no, the military controls this, and the industrialists and the Fed. And this isn't conspiracy hat stuff. This is reality. The facts are the facts.
They are. And in addition to the monetary resources, we need to look at the natural resources that have been consumed, because nature has historically provided 75% of all global GDP for free. No longer. Now, everything requires massive amount of human effort and resources to accomplish, like fish farming, which doesn't even work at this point anymore either.
That's right.
So now we're faced with greatly diminished returns on all fronts, needing more effort, more energy. And the military-industrial complex, with the use of depleted uranium, I know you know what that is, and I spoke to the Navy's PR person myself, it's about 7 years ago, who very cavalierly told me that the Navy was going to be using depleted uranium for testing off the North American West Coast. And she seems perplexed that I would be so alarmed at that. She obviously had no clue. Is it any wonder, on top of everything else, on top of Fukushima, on top of the warming, deoxygenating oceans with methane and hydrogen sulfide gassing, we have the Navy using depleted uranium for practice in our own coastal waters. God knows what they're doing elsewhere. So this mentality will very soon be our end. And back to Ron Kovic, for those that have never seen that film, or those that have seen it and didn't really contemplate the bias that was programmed into Mr. Kovic on Born on the 4th of July, that's a film worth watching several times to fully understand just how deep that programming goes. We're all tribal, and we need to break that programming, all of us, so that we might again have any chance of changing course.
I want to go back to fish farming for a second. I want to clarify something. I had read, it scared me so much, Dane, a couple of years ago, that I buy absolutely, and I'm not interested in anything that is farmed fish. And I had read this statement that farmed fish has no nutritional value. Right? Is that true? I mean, it is so unnatural for the fish to go through that all of the good fats, the good protein, and the vitamins that are in natural fish is not in farmed fish, and you are buying something that literally has no benefit.
There's a worse factor on top of that. That's absolutely correct, but there's an even more dire factor. Farmed fish, specifically farmed salmon and tilapia,
right,
are among the most toxic foods you can eat, period. The fish farms are literally a toxic waste dump. This is not food at all at this point. And yes, the EPA fats in those fish are in an unnatural form. The molecular structure has been altered.
Right.
That's truly a frankenfood.
Yeah, I read that. Now I'm freaked out about it. Now, go to a store these days. Everything is farmed fish. It is hard to find natural fish to eat.
They're dead. And where I live on the east side of Lake Shasta, even 16, 17 years ago was lush and thriving still. But in 1998, when the climate change term was implemented, I'll get back to the fish in a moment. 1998 was the warmest year ever recorded to that time. Geoengineering was fully unleashed then and has taken its toll since. It's been going on for 70 years, but that's when it was really ramped up. That's when they needed the climate change term to help condition people to thinking it was normal to go from 100 degrees to snow in a day, which it's done, by the way. I could give you specific examples on that.
It has, yes.
It has. Amarillo, Texas, May 1st, 2013. 100 degrees, all-time record on the ground, snowed the next day.
Yep.
So we have hard examples of that. But back to the heat, the fish, I had a trout stream, the headwaters of which originated on my property, very beautiful, healthy native trout, all dead, all gone. Water's far too warm, no oxygen. We have algae blooms everywhere. The UV is penetrating very deeply, heating waters, stopping them from mixing. We have the salmon die-off now is absolutely profound. All the West Coast fisheries are completely shut down. That's going to get exponentially worse, not better. Once you reach this point, collapse happens with blinding speed. We're on our last leg, absolutely on our last leg. And people need, the sooner they face this, the more chance we have of salvaging something. Isn't that, again, worth fighting for? And example I've used before, Jimmy, if your child was in a burning house and you felt you had very little chance of saving that child, would you not try? You'd still try.
Yep, I'd run in and I'd die.
Yes,
that's
exactly
what you would do. And I want to go back. I want to visit this when you talk about the oxygen in water. What is causing that?
The deoxygenation?
Yes.
The rapid warming is the primary factor, which then triggers other factors. Then you have unnatural algae blooms, which consumes what's left of the oxygen. It's a chain reaction. So, and the warming also inhibits the mixing, the natural mixing of various layers. So you get a stratification, all the above. We can add the contaminants on top of that. We have a dead zone now, the biggest ever in the Gulf of Mexico. Before Harvey got there, was about 10,000 square miles, and that's a very conservative estimate because they were unable to survey the entire area they wanted to survey. They surveyed 10,000 square miles, and it was all dead. We have 400 plus dead zones around the planet right now. We have marine life going belly up all over the globe, and that's particularly close to home for me, Jimmy, because I've been diving since I was 14, a dive master since I was 20. I've dove all over the globe. I spearfished free diving all over the globe. I feel very fortunate to have seen what I've seen. Barrier Reef expeditions when it was still somewhat healthy. Remote places in the Sea of Cortez, Fiji, New Zealand, and to know that it's all dying now. It's not just the Barrier Reef. You know, the Barrier Reef is, for all practical purposes, dead now. You know that, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And when you say dead zones, is this water moving? Is the dead zone moving, or is it in a stationary spot?
There's some fluctuation, but primarily these are oxygenless dead zones that are somewhat stationary depending on the time of the year and the currents. 400 plus dead zones around the globe right now.
And so when a school of fish swims into this dead zone, they just suffocate.
If they are not capable of getting out fast enough, that's exactly what's happened. And that's what these fish kills are from. When you see these massive fish kills happening all over the globe and people relating it to Fukushima or other issues, the radiation is bad, no question. And there's no end in sight to Fukushima, no technology to fix that. But that radiation cannot kill with that speed from that distance. Can't. The only thing that can is hypoxic and anoxic zones, low oxygen and no oxygen zones. And any form of marine life that can't escape that condition once it begins unfolding dies. And that's what kills the massive levels of fish with such speed is they enter an oxygen, a hypoxic or anoxic zone, and they die.
Is there any way to oxygenate the water? Is there any way to reverse the process? Or does it have to be natural?
Not on any scale that matters.
Wow, that is just frightening. It's frightening. And I want to talk about Fukushima. Fukushima, conveniently, which should be the biggest news in the world, right? It should be the headline news. It quite frankly is not. No media outlet will touch a Fukushima story. Why do you think that is?
Well, obviously, the same as many other extremely dire issues, the methane expulsion into the atmosphere, the craters erupting from Siberia. They're trying to keep the population from panic until the last possible moment. That's exactly why. And that Fukushima is a great example, because how can that be? We have a triple meltdown there, nuclear volcanoes, no end in sight, China syndrome times 3.
Right.
And the vast majority of the population, if you ask them about that, they think it's all fixed. It's all good. That's astounding. Yeah,
I'm looking at the dead zones right off of Washington State and Oregon right here. This is incredible.
It is.
It looks like it's from 2006 to 2007, it tripled in size.
Yeah, and that's only one region, and we're still getting conservative figures. Every official data set like that is extremely conservative. And regarding, for example, in the case of aluminum, so our legal team has been working for a very long time to try to prepare a case that won't be shot down, because the system has been set up for 70 years to ensure legal action to expose climate engineering would be difficult, if not impossible, to get off the ground. So we have a number of FOIAs out, Freedom of Information Act requests. And for example, from NOAA, we've gotten a response that basically said, we don't know anything about any type of climate engineering whatsoever, even though NOAA is named on countless documents that we have in our possession that specifically, we're 750-page reports that specifically address climate engineering, and they simply lie to our face. And we're now trying to arrange enough publicity to make it clear that there is a criminal stonewalling going on right now. So with statistical data, the size of those dead zones, back to that subject, everything across the board is exponentially worse, including the climate, including the temperatures, everything far worse than we're being told. For example, about 5 days ago in Northern California, our nighttime low, this is 5 days ago in September next to Lake Shasta in the forest, our nighttime low where I live was 91 degrees, 91. They reported the official low at 78.
Yeah, I was up when we were up in McLeod. I could not believe how warm it was. I was shocked to be in that part of the country to have those kind of temperatures. We left Burbank, it was 110, right? So we were looking forward to go up to Shasta and chilling out for 5 days. It was hotter up there than it was in Burbank.
It's staggering. And for example, other hallmarks, and I've grown up and spent a great deal of time in forests, and I live in the middle of a wilderness area, and I notice things perhaps that others wouldn't. But the berry plants in our canyons here, right on my own ridge behind me, they were frozen from about late October, 1st of March till about, 1st of November till about March. They have not frozen for 5 years. The berry plants don't lose any leaves. That's an amazingly long and consistent time. It's getting warmer with each passing week and month. It's staggeringly bad here. Again, the whole ecosystems, you know what a manzanita plant is, right?
Of course.
One of the most hardy organisms on the planet. You can't kill it with pesticides, and not that I would try, but I know others who do. They're all dying. They look like they've been hit with a torch. No berries, no food for the bears, the bats, the bees, the birds. It is a total collapse unfolding here.
And what do that was my next question. It's funny you brought that up. What does the rest of the wildlife, what do they do for food if it's not there? Like, the bears and the wolves and the coyotes and all of those natural predators up there. If there's no food, what happens?
They die. And I have historically taken sabbaticals. I have nothing but wilderness behind me, 50 linear miles of it from here to Mount Shasta, is largely trailless wilderness. And I would take long sabbaticals out there when I needed to reflect, and would see on any given trip numerous bears, deer, foxes. And on the last trip I made, I found one bear dead, laying in a stream, emaciated. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. I can barely go in the forest. And the reason I'm here doing what I'm doing and on the line with you right now, I can't spend time there while I know this is going on. And while there's anything left alive out there, and there is, nature is incredibly resilient, as you know. You give it a chance and it will find a way to survive. But it can't survive what's happening right now. And this is back to, again, the most important factor in this equation of all. I know this is a very trying set of information that we're passing on right now, but my hope is that people will try to reconsider why they're here, and that what matters, and that what provides solace at this late date. And again, the only solace I can find is being fully engaged in this battle until we bring this issue to light and to a halt. We can face other challenges then, but if there's a single issue on which the entire web of life, everything that we love, everything that we care about, everything that we need to survive, if there's one issue on which everything depends more than any other issue, focusing on that and trying to turn the tide, that's the only place I can find solace. And I would argue the same with others. Turning away from this is not going to make you feel better when you know inside how wrong it is.
I want to thank you for everything that you do. How can our audience come and support you? How do they go about that?
Help us to sound the alarm. Help us to share credible data. We have them available again on the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org. And we try to pass those materials on for what it costs us to print them, which we print in massive quantities, so we get it done very inexpensively. We simply try to pass that on and not sustain a loss at the same time. And by sharing the flyers and the booklets that we have with others, it's so incredibly effective as compared to trying to point at the sky and talk about things you're not that familiar with. Very high quality, credible, verifiable data is much more effective. So we're only asking people to help share the alarm or sound the alarm, and also from their own home computer without any materials. Jimmy, people can find links, like, for example, our links to our flyers, our booklets. You can share just the link. You can get that link as well and share it with groups, individuals, agencies. Give them a heads up. We have fully prepared packages with an intro letter and everything right on the homepage of Geoengineering Watch. Activist Suggestions, it's called. Help us to send out these flaming arrows of awareness to help us to reach a critical mass. We don't have any time to spare. That's where we need the help the most. Help us sound the alarm.
Thank you so much, Dane. And they can sign up for the newsletter right there too, right? Simple?
Yes, sir, Jimmy.
Absolutely. Dane Wigington, you are a rare gentleman among this planet, man. Thank you for everything that you do.
It's a team effort. Thank you, Jimmy.
You got it, Dane. Thank you so much. Dane Wigington. And his website, again, is very simple, geoengineeringwatch.org. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. One of the coolest, bestest people that I know, Dane Wigington. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back, open up the phone lines, and we'll talk a little 9/11. And, of course, the conversation that I just had with Dane. All right. There you go. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl, Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night, you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. GetTheTea.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. GetTheTea.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Tepe.
I'm Matt Ray with America's First News. We all know if you're planning a trip, you should shop and compare, right? But why endlessly search the web when you don't have to? Flight Services helps you find the lowest possible airfare. Talk directly to a travel pro right now for the best deals available. Their travel pros have additional discounts not found on websites, and Flight Services provides 24-hour customer service. Call toll-free 844-845-9944. That's 844-845-9944.
What's up, Fadernauts?
Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring two Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The two full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I want to thank Dane Wigington. Just an amazing conversation. One of the best. The science, the research, the data is right there. Geoengineeringwatch.org. And Dane is exactly right. How do we combat that? We combat this with knowledge. We need to get that awareness level up. Everybody needs to know exactly what's going on. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. And Dane brought up the best point of all. Strike it right down the middle. Go down the middle. That's what you need to do. Go down. Just present the data. And that's where things are at. And I can't express enough my thanks for Dane and the work that he does and getting that knowledge out there. I'm opening up the phone lines right now. The first bank is open, 323-825-5045. I'm waiting for the second one to open up, 323-275-9695. Not quite ready yet, but 323-825-5045 is. And I do want to talk about what the media has done to us in the last 2 weeks. We're coming up to 9/11 today, And to have the natural disaster stuff happen all at the same time, all around the world, certainly right here in our backyard, not only with Harvey, but Irma, covering up all of the really, really bad news that would have been dominating everything, right? And I think it was partially by design, and I'll tell you why. You can say that it was just, it's just natural. It took the path that it did. Okay, that's fine. Great. You can say that it wasn't, that it was, there's something else going on, and which is the side of the fence that I'm on, and you can go there. The bottom line is the media did cover up everything else that was going on in the news with these natural disasters and the earthquake in Mexico and everything else. They could have chosen to cover other things too as well. They did not. If you went around the world, which I did, and monitored some of the other news outlets out of Europe, out of Russia, out of the Middle East, out of the United Kingdom, and went around the world and checked out what they were covering, Irma was there, right? Down the list a little bit. But they were covering everything else that is going on around the world. Some big stuff is going on. Here in the United States, they turn, and I'm just saying, I don't want to hear, oh, Jimmy, it's just hurricane season. That's not what I'm referring to here. What I'm saying is all of the news got buried completely. Here we are, 9/11, 16th anniversary today, completely buried in the news. Completely buried. Think about that. It is by design. The media is manipulating what you are hearing, seeing, and reading. To choose to do 5 days, 4 days, 5 days of 24-hour live coverage, and I'm not saying it shouldn't have been covered, of course. And my heart goes out. I have friends, I have family, I have people that I grew up with, right, in Florida. And I totally get that. And it's just heartbreaking. Thank goodness. Oh, I wanted to say this. I have one comment to make. There is one thing that I'm very, very, very impressed with Florida. The evacuations. People listened and got the hell out of Dodge and did what they were supposed to do. Did they dodge a bullet? Not really. Okay, that hurricane went straight up the coast, and it was devastating all the way up. The amount of, when you have 6 million people without power, Andrew went it through. Now, granted, it was just in South Florida, but only 1.5 million people without electricity. The work was 1/6 of what they have to do today. To have an entire state just about without power, that's just tragic. And family, people have to live and take care of themselves. So I recognize all of that. Okay. But it also managed to bury the news. And if there was anything that you wanted out of the headlines, look, we are in a 24-hour news cycle. We are in a minute-by-minute news cycle. And if you want something buried, if you want something out of the way, the next day, whatever that news is, the next day it's gone. It's gone. It's yesterday's news. It's just the way that it is. Okay. All right. I've got phones backed up. The other phone, look, if you can't get through at 323-825-5045, call 323-275-9695. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Damien from Hamilton.
Hey, Damien. How are you, man?
I'm doing well, man. Great show tonight. Earlier I sent you an email regarding like the downloads that I don't know what it is, Jimmy, but it's just something regarding the pyramids around the world. I think they continue deep underground like giant obelisks. What do you think about that?
Well, it's funny.
I want to know what the audience thinks.
Yeah, well, great download no matter what. So let's just say that here, right? Great download. But you know what's really strange, and I'll try to address this directly in the coming days. Maybe I'll get it together by Thursday night for Fader Night. But I got a couple of other emails over the last month that are talking about the exact same thing, connecting to
Is
source.
that right?
Yeah, connecting to source at the center of the earth. And so I'm like, where have I read this before? Right? It's like the third time this has happened. So nobody knows what you and I are talking about right now. So let's save it for Thursday night, and I will address this directly. But thank you for that, and it's very, very interesting. So,
and thanks again, Jimmy, for everything you do. And it's just, like I said, I'm not looking for any kind of publicity or anything like that. It's just something that came to me, and the first person that came to mind was, you, the Federnauts, Rita, and you guys are doing a great job. And it's, like I said, I had to tell Jimmy about this. And I drew it on a piece of paper, so...
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'll wait for that, and I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Damien, and behave and be well, and I'll line things up for Thursday night. Fair enough?
All right, cool. Hey, fair enough. Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Thank you, Damien. Behave.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, let's keep this going. Man, lots of phone calls back to back. Okay, let's go. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. This is Mate from Florida. How you doing?
Mate, I was hoping you would call in, my friend. How are you? How's the family?
Good. We are good. We were really lucky. We just lost power, and electricity was on and off. So, but now everything is good, back to normal.
So you're in North Miami, Boca Raton, right?
Yes. It's like around 50 miles from Miami. So. Yeah, and the reason I'm saying we were really lucky because Miami was really devastated. I'm sure you saw the videos.
Of CNN. Course, yeah, absolutely.
and the hurricane turned towards west, but if it didn't, and if it hit us like straight, that would have been a really big issue because we wouldn't have power now. And like a cell phone reception just came back, and actually I just received your voicemail like 3 days ago that you sent me, and. It's just amazing that all this destruction here, like our house is like pretty new and it took the beating really good. So
okay. Mate, tell us, what was it like going through the hurricane?
It's really loud. it's scary. Like the baby Martin was like really scared. He was like crying all day. And it sounds like a freight train is going by, passing by your door, or like an airline, or like if you stand next to like a jet engine. That's how it sounds. It's really loud, and all these branches and the leaves that are hitting the windows and the doors is noisy, really loud.
And how long did this continue for you guys? Was it hours? Was it an hour? How long did it go on?
Hours, yeah. It started Sunday early morning around like 4:00 in the morning.
Right.
And went all the way until Monday. So yeah.
Yeah.
I would say like 24 hours easily. Yeah.
Now, what about the flooding that we saw in downtown Miami? Did you guys get any flooding where you were?
No, fortunately, we didn't get the flooding because, as I think it caught Miami. When it was going west, it went through Miami and went all the way west. And Boca is like north.
Right.
Hello.
Yep.
Yeah, so we were spared basically. Like we didn't get the hardest hit. So, we were really lucky that it decided to turn west. Or whoever was steering it west,
Well, what was interesting for me, Mate, and I'm so glad that you guys are safe, and we tried to stay in touch with you, and we knew when you weren't responding back to text and phone calls, I'm like, man, he's going through a hurricane. The last thing he wants to do is to talk to us. He's got stuff to worry about.
No,
but
I would love to. I would want to talk to you, but there was no reception. Like I just received your voicemail, like all the messages, like bum bum bum, just popped up because we didn't have reception. Maybe the towers were down, or I'm not sure. But we have AT&T, and it should have worked, but it didn't. So.
Well, okay, but this is what was interesting when it turned west. I was like, okay, it looks like Miami is, gonna get spared, and then boom, it hit, and even though it was the outer, branches of the hurricane, you guys got pummeled, and the floods came in, and the wind, and it might as well have just hit a direct hit on Miami. It didn't look like it was any nicer to you guys. It looked pretty brutal.
Yeah, but the reason I was saying we were lucky because we didn't get, the eye of the hurricane, and the wall around the eye just completely missed us. So we just basically got the edge, That's how I would say it is but it was still pretty devastating. Like, you should see the trees around here.
I know.
They're all down. Power lines are down. And the reason I think we have power, because this is a new house, was built 2 years ago, that all the power lines are under the ground. So I think that's the main reason.
Yeah, so you guys got power on. You didn't run out of food or water. And
yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm just saying again, we were extremely lucky. I don't know, like, somebody look out for us, or, the prayers and the faith or not, they were thinking about us health, but I'm saying we are really lucky to have power, and all of our friends, they have no power, and they say 75% of state of Florida is without power right now.
Right. Well, and just thank you for taking the time to call in, because, our family loves you so much, and we were very concerned. But I did laugh when you posted those pictures of you at the supermarket trying to get sushi. And
yeah.
I got to tell, that was one of the funniest. And I was just glad that you were in good spirits. But
no, my sense of humor is always there, and then I try to make the best of the worst situation. But, like, imagine you walk into Whole Foods and you want to buy something, and it's empty.
It's empty.
Nothing on the shelf. Yeah, I mean, you saw those pictures.
Yep.
We weren't able to buy water, nothing, just no sushi, nothing. And it was like, I hate to say it, but it reminded me of like the 1980s of Poland or East Germany, when you walked into the stores and there's nothing there.
Right,
Even though you have money to buy stuff, but they don't have anything. So.
Well, I'm just so glad that, I'm just glad that everybody thought about evacuating. Nobody goofed around. Everybody went to safe places. It could have been just a really, really bad situation, but it's not. It could have been worse. It's okay. We can take a breath, and I'm just happy for you and your family. Thank you for taking the time to call in.
No, thank you for looking out for us and trying to reach us. And I also told Rita we wanted to fly to California, but there were no tickets. Like, they were all sold out. So, and the only way we're supposed to evacuate is just drive north. And you saw those 95 and the other highways. They were gridlocked. People were everywhere. They just
just to let everybody know, we almost had roommates. Thank you so much, Mate.
Thank you.
Behave and be well, man. And go hug baby Mate for us. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Baby
thank
Martin,
you. Bye,
you got it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Man, I'm so glad that we got that phone call right there. Mate Meyer. Oh, unbelievable. Oh, I just hung up on the wrong... I hung up on the wrong phone lines. Okay, let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy. Les in the Hill Country outside of Austin.
Hey, Les, outside of Austin. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hey, I love the show. Love Dane Wigington. I'd like to bring up one little premise, though. I think he misses. And I'll set it up by this. We know probably there's been more than one civilization on this planet. We're not the first ones that have messed with the weather, or it could have been asteroids or anything else.
Sure.
This planet is pretty resilient. I think what we're really seeing is we know the sun goes through its cycles and it interacts with the earth and it cycles on its axis. And the current cycle we are moving into, from the best science I've been able to check out, is it's getting colder. I think what we're seeing is the interaction between global engineering, which is doing more damage than big oil is doing to the planet, and solar forcing trying to do its natural cycle. We all know who's going to win. Nature's going to win. Humanity's going to get caught in the crossfire. And that's what's going on. I think he thinks the Earth's getting warmer. I don't believe it's getting warmer. I believe the cycle is taking us to a colder phase, but we've got two forces, one weaker, man-made, geoengineering, clashing with a natural cycle, and it's making everything more extreme. I totally agree with them that we are using weather wars, which are more effective than nuclear ones, against countries that don't fall in line with U.S. Western, not just U.S., just Western globalist hegemony. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, that's my spiel.
Well, let me actually respond to you. This is what I think. I think you're both right, and let me explain why. And I'm not trying to play it down the middle here. Is this what Dane is spot on about? Where his concerns are is getting to a tipping point that we cannot reverse, and if we go to that tipping point, it is going to go bad in hours. It's not going to go. It's totally. not. It's going to go really, really bad. And that tipping point, if we can avoid getting to that tipping point, this is where I agree with you that nature has a way of cleaning up and fixing things and balancing things out very, very quickly. It can restock the oceans. The wildlife can come back. But if we don't push the issue, if we back off and act sensibly on a bunch of different fronts, Earth will center itself and get back. And that's what you are saying, and that's exactly what Dane is saying. Now, his evidence about everything heating up is you go look at that data, unless you should do this. Go to geoengineeringwatch.org and check the data out. Okay, and it's not there. It's not there. It's not there to. It's not there to cause fear.
Though, is for every spot that's warming, there's another spot that's cooling, and there is. If you look at the data of cycles, that what is fighting with the geoengineering, which is causing warming. I don't disagree with that. And there's volcanoes underneath the oceans and so forth having effects. It's all clashing together, and we're caught in the middle. But natural cycles are going to win out. I don't really disagree with them. I think the geoengineering is making it worse because everything's clashing. Solar forcing into a cooler phase, which historically you can just look at the data. We're due. It happens cyclically. But geoengineering is heating things up and doing weird stuff and is having side effects like prescription medicines do. I mean, and the two are clashing. And one's going to win, and humanity's going to get caught in the crossfire if we don't do something.
Yep, and that's exactly the point. That's where I agree with you, and I'm serious. I try to make light of this, but the Earth is going to puke, right? It's just going to get to that point where it's just going to go blah, and that will be the end. It'll be you know, when you go to you have to re-upload. Install a new operating system on your computer. You have to reset your television. You have to reset, you have to put the little pin in the little hole and do a hard reset on something, and you lose all of your data, and you start back over again. That's what's going to happen. And it's not fear-mongering. It's just, it's happened so many times, and it's just going to be this hard reset. Unfortunately, we're going to be the data. We're the data that's lost, and we have time, we have the information to do something about it. We need to back off the gas pedal.
And we got shows like yours telling people this 10 years ago, heck, 5 years ago, there was no internet radio.
Right.
There was nothing like your show.
Right. I agree with that. How do I say this without sounding redundant? We just need to take our foot off the gas pedal. You know, we're driving this car so fast, and we don't know where we're driving to, and we don't know the effects of what we are putting on ourselves and putting on this planet. We don't know. We're in uncharted territory. We try to apply the science. We try to have theories, and we try to do the right thing. We really do, as a whole. But the truth is, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know. I totally agree with Dane. It's not only the waters, the fish, the wildlife, you know, the ozone. It's a little bit of everything all at the same time. Nature runs in balance. All of this needs to run in balance. And if we're losing bees and we're losing monarchs and we're losing 300 species a day, and the fish are dying and the seas are heating and the sky is screwed up and the ozone and ice is melting and things are all of this, a little bit of everything at the same time, I'm telling you. Do you know an engine on a car runs in fine balance, right? Just fine balance. Once the oil in that engine is just a little bit out, you can't start it. It seizes up. It just won't work. And it seems like the oil would be good enough. The gas is there. There's no broken parts, but it won't run. I'm telling you, once something get, a little bit too hot, anything goes wrong with an engine, it stops. It's the same thing with the planet. And if all of this...
And humans are better at feeding their car than they are their planet and their own bodies.
Yeah, that's probably true. I'm guilty. I'm guilty of that. Les, thank you so much, man, for the phone call. Be safe and be well.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. A great phone call. And like I said, I wasn't playing that down in the middle. They're both right. I totally agree. I got 1 minute. I've got 1 minute. I'll take one 60-second phone call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. You got 60 seconds. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Scotty.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Dude, we really need you in this planet. You have brought out the most important information with everything. Without you, we cannot survive.
Thank you, Scott. Well, I'm very insignificant, but, I thank you for that. Look, we only do what we can, right? And I've said this time after time after time after time. What is the alternative? Not saying something about it, not having this show, not looking for alien life, not exploring the other side. Is that really what you want? No, we have to continue down this road. The alternative is horrific. And if you do nothing, you're guilty of that. All right? So we do what we can, and you're part of it.
You're right. And every day that I listen to your radio station, I'm educated beyond your wildest nightmares, and I learn something more, and I hope that the Fader Nights, they learn it the same way that I do. It is incredible what you're putting out for us.
Thank you so much, Scott, and you took it right to the credits, my friend. Behave and be well, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Peace out.
There you go, Scott. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dane Wigington. I'll say it one more time. geoengineeringwatch.org. The very best. Sign up for the newsletter. Visit the website. Help spread the knowledge. That's all you got to do, and we'll fix this world together. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Tomorrow night, Laura Eisenhower, right here on Fade to Black. Until then, I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.